And welcome back to Ibiza, and thank you for rejoining us for the continued coverage of the 2025 World Aquatics Open Water Swimming World Cup. If you're just tuning in, I am Will Rollo, and today I'm joined in commentary by Olympian and open water icon Alice Deering as we get ready for the start of the men's 10 kilometers. Earlier today, we saw a home crowd erupt as Spain's Angela Martinez powered to a stunning win in the women's race for her first World Cup victory, a moment that will stay with her and the fans for a long time. Now attention turns to the men's race, and we're in for a very different kind of race. The water temperature is still sitting at 18.3 degrees, meaning wetsuits will not be used. Conditions are starting to shift. The wind has picked up and the chop is building, but there's a lot of racecraft that will come into play today. One of the headline names in the field, Krzysztof Rozowski, is making his 2025 international debut today. The Olympic gold medalist and world champion knows how to manage big races, and he'll be sure to make a statement first up. Alice, as we get ready for the start, how do you see this one play out?
Hey, yeah, I am really looking forward to seeing Bethlehem Rozovsky back into this race, with Sasha Valley and Marc-Antoine Olivier that we have in the mix as well as a host of Spanish and Italian athletes like Palcineri and Varani. So, of course, Ollie Klemet as well. I'm just like taking it all in as it comes through. We've got a stacked field and also 80 competitors, I believe. Yeah. We've got a lot of people competing in this. It's a very big field. One of the biggest I've ever seen at a World Cup. This is normally the kind of numbers that are reserved for World Championships. So much to happen, so much that we're going to have to unpack, and I'm really looking forward to be able to calling it all with you, Will.
Yeah, plenty to unpack there, Alice, and you're right. It has all the ingredients to be a race to remember. As you mentioned, 82 athletes lining up in the men's field today, representing a wide mix of federations and a huge local showing as well from the Spaniards, taking to the start line here in Ibiza, doubling as their national titles. We're about to meet the athletes racing at home and abroad in front of this vocal crowd at a brand new World Cup stop. This is a moment to savor for the host nation. Let's take a look at the athletes ready to race. But Alice, as we get to introduce our first athlete, who have you got your eye on for the victory?
I just really, I'm looking at Rozovsky for this. I'm really interested to see what kind of form he's in. I think he's going to want to get in and dominate this race as we see him typically do. So my eyes are on Rozovsky, Marc-Antoine Olivier and Sasha Valley, as well as Logan Fontaine and Palcineri, and also Hector Pardo in the mix there as well. But where are your sights set?
Yeah, I think we're pretty similar to this as we spoke earlier this week. The one thing that will be of note, of course, is this Spanish contention. We saw just how strong it is on the women's side. Can they get up and potentially make their way into what would be almost a bit of a surprise to see them in the medals, but never say never, especially at home. But Alice, from your experience, how much does that home energy impact an athlete, not just emotionally, but also somewhat tactically out there on the course?
Yeah, I always think you can just take just so much more confidence from those moments. Getting to represent your country in your country is a really special moment. I've only been fortunate enough to do it once. It was at European Championships in 2016. And I did it in the 8 and the 1500 metres in the pool. I remember some school kids cheering for me, and you do get a much larger reception when you walk out. This crowd will be predominantly Spanish, and it's always just great to cheer on your countrymen and respect the effort that they're getting in, especially when we have 28 Spanish men competing in this race this afternoon.
And here is one of them starting to walk out. We've had 15 athletes so far introduced. Of course, the top 10, as per normal races, will be introduced as the last 10 into the start line. We talked in the women's race just how exciting but nerve-wracking this moment is for many athletes, and as we see a few of them racing for the very first time at this level will certainly be playing an impact on the men walking down the start line.
Yes, definitely. You know, I think when you're coming in for your first competition at a World Cup level, there are nerves attached to it, but I really think enjoy the moment of it being your first time. It is daunting, it's nerve-wracking, you're suddenly up against the best in the world, as well as it being your national championship, so you have so much on the line at once. But I think relish that opportunity and that feeling, because it comes and it goes very quickly. Before you know it, you would have done a fair few of them, and the expectations on you will be a lot higher. So being able to be in the moment, enjoy the experience, and get as much knowledge out of the race as possible is absolutely key.
One of the interesting insights of the start of an open water race is, of course, on this pontoon. It's almost exclusive to, if not international level, certainly from like a continental level, that you'll see a pontoon as the starting line. So for many swimmers or open water fans that have given this sport a crack, you wouldn't be aware of the challenges of diving off this pontoon. So speak to us about that, Alice. I guess it's a unique art to perfect, and almost with some of the photographers on the pontoon after the race, just watch how that affects them when they dive in.
Yeah, that's such a good point. As an athlete, because I live this, I often forget that a lot of this isn't normal. I would just give context. Some races back in the day used to start in the water. Sometimes you'd start how you just saw an athlete got in there with his hands still on the pontoon, and you'd start holding the pontoon, and then you're able to kind of push off from it if you can get your feet high enough off on it and push off and go, instead of us diving in. But the dive, a pontoon like this pontoon looks very steady, looks very stable. Some of them you've seen before, especially if they can be further out into the middle of the ocean. You get some waves going across it, and you're going to have 80 men all leaning over the edge, ready to dive in. And the force of them diving in pushes the pontoon back, and can really be disruptive if you're not diving in at the same time as everybody else. So I don't know if we'll see anybody stand a little bit further back and let everybody go and then get in after them. If they do, just watch out for that swimmer, watch out for those swimmers, and see what happens to their balance and the kind of stance that they have to take to make sure that they're still stable and not going to fall in after everybody else.
Yeah, I know there was some footage that circulated after the World Junior Championships of just some of the referees unfortunately taking a topple into the water after the start of the race, as to the reverb of that starting pontoon. Of course, today with 82 athletes, it's going to be quite intense, and I guess, if you're watching from home, you'd think that this is some sort of structure that's in the ocean all the time, but this is man-made for this event. So it does certainly have its challenges, and that's sort of we spoke before, Alice, about if this is your first time racing on this level, there's so much to take in that it's really almost impossible to nail it on your first attempt.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. That's the one thing about open water swimming. It's very rare to see someone get in and have like the debut of their life. Point to Florian Wellbrock for this example. He did junior swimming and wasn't really placing anywhere highly, and then you move to the senior stage and it gets even harder, and it is so much practice, experience, coming back home off of a competition, potentially writing down your notes, speaking to your coach, and learning what you need to change and adapt to be able to get into the best positions, looking at what the best people are doing and how that swam, and then understanding where you fit into that and where you can improve. So for any of the debutants at the World Cup level at the moment, always the best of luck to them. It is so challenging and so difficult. But don't get disheartened if you're coming off the back of a result that you didn't quite want or didn't quite expect. Don't get disheartened, get in and try again. It took, it takes people years and years to get to the level that we see a lot of the top athletes operating at. It doesn't happen overnight. And I think that's one of the great things about open water swimming is it really takes a considered amount of effort over a long amount of time to really get to the top, but it makes it all the more sweeter when you do break into that top 10 or get on that podium.
Such great advice, Alice. And from our rookies to our experienced athletes, we move to our top 10. And kicking us off is the 2024 Junior Champion from the World Cup Series. What a rising star Melechi is from Brazil.
Yes, it's fantastic to see Brazil still carrying on this strength of talent from Ana Marcela Cunha at the more senior side of things all the way down to Melechi.
He's one of my favorites, Logan Fontaine. He looks in absolutely sensational shape.
Yes, he's really bulked out, and this is, as I've been saying, great to see with open water swimming, the diversity of body shapes that you can have from it.
From one to the other, Sachavelli, the junior world champion last year, he looks very confident.
Yeah, and bronze medalist in the 3K knockout from juniors as well, so looking forward to see what he does tomorrow.
And arguably we've got confidence.
Yeah, we've got Hector Pardo coming out now, third at the Doha World Championships last year, and I think seventh at Paris, as either seventh or eighth.
Here is Marcelo Guidi, a sensational back end of 2024. Can he continue it here?
5-time Olympic medalist, 16-time world medalist,
Out next, here he is, one of the fastest ever, over 1,500 meters, Gregorio Paltrineri. He's got a bit to prove today. Can he fire a shot after Soma Bay? He'll be up against it, and one of those he's up against, Dario Varani, his countryman. 2 spots to race for Italy at the World Championships. Many swimmers wanting those spots. But up next, there's no doubting this man will be racing in Singapore. David Bethlehem, one of the brightest stars for the future of open water swimming. He walks out looking up to his Hungarian flag. Out next, the Olympic silver medalist, Ollie Klemet, still one of the most incredible feats in an open water race I've seen. Ollie Klemet closing a gap of 1:30 to get into contention. Out next, Marc-Antoine Olivier, the 2024 series champion. He was on the podium in Soma Bay. He loves taking the points and he loves the money lap. He will feature early. And the final athlete out, none other than the Olympic champion, the world champion, making his 2025 international debut. And Alice, he looks ready.
Yeah, he's been posting some fast pool times, so I think that's why I'm confident that he's going to get in and do what we know him to do. And I just want to comment real quick. I'm just curious why David Bethlehem might be wearing just the bottom. There is a benefit of wearing the top half as well that gives added buoyancy, also extra warmth as well in this competition. I'm just curious by that. It's just that I don't think we typically see him racing in that. I think he normally is in the full skin. So just another bit of variety, something different. It will definitely be easy to spot him, which is actually I'm quite grateful for. You know, we'll be able to tell that it's David Bethlehem because he hasn't got the top half on. But really, really exciting and star-studded lineup, isn't it, Will?
Oh, this is one of the best fields I've ever seen. Only a handful of athletes missing from this star-studded lineup. As we get ready to go into the hands of our starters, the anticipation would never be higher. And once again, keep an eye on this starting pontoon. The athletes crouched down, ready for the instructions of our officials. And we are underway in the men's 10 kilometers here in Ibiza. 82 athletes charging into the Mediterranean with 6 laps ahead. A lot to play out for this second stop of the World Cup season. We're already seeing that aggressive jostling for position as they approach the first buoy down this straight 700 meters. Clean water and control early on will be absolutely critical, especially with now the wind lifting across the course. Alice, in a field of this size, How do you find that balance between staying relaxed and making sure you don't get boxed in these opening laps?
I mean, I'm just really taking in, seeing them
Wow.
all dive in there. It was something, wasn't it? And I did look at the bounce back that the people on the pontoon had to deal with, and they crouched down and like held their ground, so they did really well. But um, just the depth of the field is like huge, and it's great. We see Kaito Tsushimori from Japan. He's like one of my favorites for the future. I think he's like, we're seeing the future of open water swimming in him. He's had some great, I think he swam really, really well in Sona Bay a couple months back, and obviously coming off the back of a very successful World Juniors, taking home the gold in the 3K knockout. Also had a great swim in the 10K as well. So this is what we're talking about. This is what the sprint lap is about. Getting in, get those opportunities, and see where it can take you. This is so exciting for him in Japan, and we know he has a great pool speed as well.
This is sensational to see here. Kaito Shimori of Japan just really laying down the speed, and it's a almost good foreshadowing by you, Alice, talking earlier about Florian and how he transitioned from junior open water to senior open water. Obviously, Kaito being a junior world champion, he dropped 30 seconds off his 1500 meters, the short course version at least, last year, and he's now at a 1440 short course, that is, so not quite to the long course standard yet, but when you see that rapid improvement over one season, it paints a picture to be leading a race in this position. Oh my goodness, this is crazy.
Yeah, like this gap, good for him. I really, really like this. This is what it's about. Get in, take those opportunities. I'm not sure what Japan's selection policy is, whether they've got a national championships or whether this is it, but either way, take those opportunities, run with them, and see what you can do. I've also just been told by my friend Felix that David Bethlehem did only wear the bottoms at the Olympic Games, so that isn't atypical of him. He must just prefer to have the bottoms on. So thank you. It's really nice we've got people listening in and keeping us honest, Will. We both have our people making sure that we get our facts straight, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's an interesting take because Nick Sloman of Australia also sometimes races with just the bottoms only, and typically with especially the lighter athletes, the more slender athletes, they have that very high stroke rate and almost on cue. How's that?
Yes.
David Bethlehem moving through. They love the freedom that comes from not having the suit over your shoulders to keep that high stroke rate. So maybe that's the way that Bethlehem likes to race, but it is interesting given how cold the water is today.
Yes, definitely. Having your chest bare to that will make quite a big difference in terms of your body heat. But we know David Bethlehem likes to be at the front, likes to make it hard, and we're seeing him now, getting up next to Tsushimori and not letting him have it his own way. He's kind of sending a message to him, like.
Yeah.
I love this from open water swimming, especially with the men. I always think with the men, there's always an added angle perhaps of comments made whilst they swim, not that they're saying anything, but the energy that is put out is always so competitive, and there's egos in there is what I'm saying. In plain English is what I'm saying. There's some egos and there's some messages being sent. So I think Bethlehem pulling up alongside Tsushimori, letting him know that, okay, yeah, you might have had your moment, but I'm here now. I'm here to take what is mine in terms of he loves leading, loves winning that sprint lap and making it fast. So I'm really grateful for Tsushimori. He's going to really stick in there. It's great experience for him to go up against, like, shoulder to shoulder with an Olympic medalist. What an opportunity for him.
Yeah, there's so much from that, Alice, but obviously when you talk about egos and messages, we saw the back end of Soma Bay and the shot of none other than Florian Walbrock just lying on his back in absolute bliss with no sight of second and third. And I'm sure, as we've mentioned previously, that would have had an impact on the rest of the open water swimming world. We're expecting to see a message fired back today. As for when it comes is up for discussion. Looks like Ollie Klemet's moved up in alignment there with David Bethlehem. But one thing that I did want to shout out, and both for Ollie and David at this point in the race, what Kaito did is extremely impressive. Don't get me wrong, extremely impressive to get off the start line and to be swimming in clear water. But for Klemet and Bethlehem to swim through that pack and pull up alongside, you've lost that early energy that you get off the starting pontoon, and you really have to dig deep. And they just make it look so effortless. The moves through this opening straight are almost pointless because it is such a hard way to move through the field. Everyone's fresh, everyone's ready, everyone's excited. And that's why, if you go back a few years, the swimmers like Ferry Vertman or Spiro from Greece just sat back and let the chaos sort of ensue. And then when everyone starts to see their energy levels drop, that's when they make their moves. But this is the new generation of swimming. They don't want to give the likes of Christoph Rozovsky or Florian Welbrock an opportunity to take the race away from them. So they move through at the start of the race from that 200 to 400 meter mark, and they make it look so easy, but it is incredibly difficult.
Yeah, honestly, you just don't have a choice. In the men's race at the moment, I just don't think you have a choice but to go for it at the front and accept that the first lap is going to be chaotic because you, of course, have the added element of the sprint and the money. But the likelihood is it's not going to let off after that. And I don't blame these swimmers for getting in front and doing it because you have 80 people that you're contending with now. I think it's one of those natural things that as the fields get bigger, it's more understandable why you would just go, hey, I'm just going to go for it because I'm not risking getting caught in the back of this wash and, making a mistake, having a dodgy turn, suddenly ending up in 30th position. And yes, the front of the pack may, but I still have 29 other people to get around before I'm in the lead. So the evolution of open water swimming, as I said with the women's, has came with the athletes really driving that and changing the tactics and dynamics of the race. But equally, the growth of the sport has also forced this evolution as well. It was only natural that you're going to see more athletes want to stay out of trouble and just get in front. And really, really great to see Rozovsky, Clement and Bethlehem. Guys, this is the Olympic podium, all just swimming in a line and just you would be mistaken for thinking this is the last lap, to be honest, the way they're swimming it. I absolutely love it.
Well, we know you won't be the only one loving it as well as the spectators, but of course the technical committee and the staff at World Aquatics. This is why they introduced this money lap, to see the chaos that it ensues. We've only swum 700 meters or 750 meters, and we've gone through in a tick over 8 minutes. This is lightning fast at the start of a 10K. If you compare this to marathon running standards, it'd be like seeing Elliot Kipchoge just absolutely flat out sprinting the first 5K. It doesn't make any sense.
Yes. I've never thought about it like that. We often, whilst it is marathon swimming, I never really tie the two together and try to think what's the conversion for marathon running. But you're absolutely right. It would be like seeing them pelt the first 1/6 of a race and then maybe knock off the pace a little bit, but still have to hold like I can't convert it into running knowledge. Apologies, it's really not my area of expertise, but that they'll be holding maybe 62, 63s per 100 at the moment here. And then when I say they knock off the pace, I do that in inverted commas. They'll be coming back down to 65s and 66s. It's not like they're slowing down to 120s and really having a recovery swim and swimming down. It's still high, fast pace, and the rest of the pack, the other 80 swimmers behind them, have to cope with that.
No, and I guess that's what these pictures don't tell the story of just how quickly they are moving. And I mean, when you put it in a postcard destination like we're swimming in Ibiza, it almost looks like they're out for a gentle stroll. But yeah, at the moment they're probably sitting at like 32 seconds per 50. So for most of the world, that is faster than they could swim 150 in. And they're doing this through the first 1600 meters of a 10-kilometer race. That is, actually 32 is probably even too slow. I reckon they're probably 102, 103 per 100 at this point in the race, which is lightning fast. When you think, it was only a tick over 30 years ago that, the open men were struggling to break 1500 meters in 15 minutes.
That's such a good point, just commenting on how far distance swimming as a whole, and then open water swimming has came, is so exciting. This is a relatively new Olympic sport. It only came into the Olympics in 2008. So we're coming up to the 2020 Games of 20 years of open water swimming being at the Olympics. And before then, there were many people who took part in it, but it didn't quite get the credibility and respect that it deserved as an event because it wasn't in the Olympic Games. But that coming in 2008, and I'll always say this, I'll argue, I think it's the hardest summer Olympic sport. I can't think of a more difficult event at the Olympic Games than marathon swimming. So whenever I see a marathon swimmer or someone doing it, I'm always like, so much respect to them, because it is one of the most challenging events in sport in the world. And it's so competitive as well, as we're saying. The growth of it and the development of distance swimming has led us to this amazing point where you get athletes like Rozovsky, like Wellbrock and Klemet, all of these amazing athletes who can get in and basically swim a 10K for time.
Yeah, and that, as you said, is the evolution of it. And what we're seeing at the moment, Alice, and what we talked about during the women's race is the evolution in lifetime of the women's 10 kilometers. But we are coming towards the end of this current cycle in the men's open water swimming. Florian Wellbrock still number one. Krzysztof Rozovsky, well, actually, that's probably number one. It's very hard to argue either way, to be fair. But this next generation, Ollie Klemet, Sasha Veli, David Bethlehem, they are going to do something, and it might not even be those three that will change the way that men's open water swimming is swum. And I honestly wonder if it's going to swing the other way, where the pace will be faster than what it was previously, but it's going to come down to more consistent sprint finishes.
I think it naturally will. I think just the way, if you want to get one over on these athletes in terms of Rozovsky and Wellbrock, and the ones who will lead it and dominate from the front, you're going to have to either beat them at their own game or develop your own tactic to change the race and, maybe force it back into a sprint finish style. And I'd love to kind of see it go that way. Of course, it'd be fantastic to see swimmers, trying to beat them at their own game. But then even in that sense, that will end up being a sprint finish. So I think as we get more athletes up to that standard and kind of adopting the training styles that Wellbrock and Rozovsky and Bethlehem undertake. Go. Yes, is that Marc-Antoine?
Yeah, Mark's pulled up and David's still at the bottom and Ollie just behind. I think this is going to be a 3 or 4 person sprint at the end of lap one.
Yeah, I love this. It's like it's the final lap. It's like there's everything on the line at the moment. I don't know if we'll see their strokes be much different towards the end of the race, to be honest. Obviously there'll be more fatigue in there, but they're all really committed to this and going for it. But the pack is still heavy, isn't it?
Yeah, we know Mark loves chasing that money lap, but so does David Bethlehem, and Christoph clearly up for the fight today. So what is really interesting here is by Mark pulling up alongside Christoph, it's opened the door for David to move forward as well. And now there's no favorite for this race because they are literally in a drag race down this. Oh, there goes Mark pulling on the inside of the course. There's someone on his hip as well, Alice. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, but this is an all-out sprint for end of lap 1.
Yeah, it's much more. I'd say the women's was much more respectable in the terms of it was kind of like, okay, Tadeusz, it's yours, you're good. We'll figure out the rest of the race as we go. But the men are just like, nah, I want this badly. I feel bad for Rozovsky in this position. He's really sandwiched, and whilst he is like a stronger swimmer in terms of he has a bit more bulk and height to him. Oh, we see
David.
Bethlehem really pulling away now. That spurt is so impressive.
And Logan's on that far side for France as well. Oh no, sorry, that's Sachavelli. But yeah, that was a big spurt for David. But what he's done, he's actually opened up Christoph on the outside of the course, the bottom of the screen. So Mark and David will now lock into battle. Christoph has an open run. I think that's Sachavelli at the top of your screen there, or Logan. It's very hard to tell, but this is anyone's of the top 4 as they come down about 50 meters in the end of lap 1 here. As you see, 4 athletes across, and it's Marc-Antoine now who's been sandwiched. Below him is David Bethlehem trying to put in that final spurt. Krzysztof Rozovsky in the green Hungarian cap with clear water ready for that final surge. It is Logan Fontaine now at the top. Jeez, who would have thought end of lap 1, 10K to swim. Here's the surge from Rozovsky. As I mentioned, there will be people celebrating all over the beach right now, Alice, but Krzysztof now pulling away.
I just, every time I thought, oh, okay, it's David Bethlehem's, he's got a decisive lead at this point. At one point, I was like, oh, it's Marc-Antoine's just before that, and then it's Bethlehem's. And now, like, exactly.
I push it all the way.
Who's it going to be? Is that?
Oh, I think it might be Logan.
Is that Fontaine?
Yes, I think it was Logan. Oh, that is very classy work there by Logan Fontaine. He pushed that entire lead pack into the pontoon and ultimately swims away with what is an unconfirmed victory. That is level IQ 1000 swimming by Logan Fontaine out in front.
Honestly, I think that's probably the most entertaining sprint lap we've had. It really, look at the split between everyone, and I saw Hector Pardo dipping in as well, maybe in like 7th or 8th place, probably only 1.5 seconds back from the lead. Just so competitive. Like, what is going on? And it's quite funny, the moment they went through the intermediate gate, you could see the pace just slow down. You really wouldn't, I wouldn't blame you if you thought that was the finish, because they were really committed and going for it. Oh, it's setting up for such a fantastic race that I just can't really I don't think a break will happen.
No.
Because you have about 5 or 6 swimmers who are very happy to lead, and there's no way they are letting anybody get away with a comfortable lead at any point. I just can't see it happening.
Well, yeah, and all the big names are sort of towards the front of the race, which is sort of specific to the men's, well, the way the men's have been racing, as opposed to the women. So I can't see a break coming anytime soon. And oh, Alice, that was incredible racing. It's hard to think that there's still 8.5 kilometers of racing left in this race after we just saw. Also, just a shout out, 17 minutes low through the first lap. That is like electric.
Yeah, in open water, I'm so conditioned to being like, the time doesn't matter too much, because it's all about racing everybody else and things like that. But 17 low for 1.6k or 1.7k, let's round it up and be generous. So quick. That's probably like a 61 per 100 pace.
Yeah.
A lot of accomplished 1500 swimmers don't. It's a lot more common now to break 15 minutes, but swimming 15:20 in the pool with tumble turns is a very respectable 1500 time, and we've basically seen these men split well under that. in open water whilst contending with each other in terms of like the physicality and not having turns. I don't know. There's so much going on with this. The lead is going to be
Yeah.
changing constantly as well. I think it's exciting.
Well, I didn't expect Christoph to continue to sit at the front of the race. He is one of those athletes that likes to sit within that 5 to 8th range. So to see him continue to charge forward, and I'm not going to say it's surprising because he is both the reigning Olympic and world champion. So put some credit where credit is due. But also what we've typically seen is Christoph take the pace out of it. So although he didn't come out of Paris in the best shape, as we've talked about, that sort of Olympic hangover is a real impact on these athletes. But he's been in good form in the pool as of late, and it looks like he's trying something new here in this second lap.
Yeah, so was it? Oh gosh, we had so many amazing swims towards the back end of last year that I'm getting them conflated in my mind. I know there was one swim, it might have been Hong Kong, where he was up in front for a while and then I think just tired towards the back end because had obviously taken some time off after the Olympic Games, as he should, as is deserved. Coming off the back of being Olympic champion, Olympic silver medalist in Tokyo in 2021. He probably needed a break, and I'm honestly surprised we haven't seen a longer break from him. But he's obviously back in and training well. He looks really strong, really good here, and again, he's one of those swimmers, like I was saying to Tadaducci, just not afraid to get in and give it a go. And if you get tired, you get tired. You'll deal with that when you have to deal with it. But as is typical for Marc-Antoine, sat in that comfortable second position, enjoying the feet of the leader, and just taking into account where everybody else is in the pack. And I think that's Ollie Klemet on his shoulder. And this is what I mean, like, there's no way any swimmer is getting away, because when you think you've defeated one like titan in open water swimming, you have the next one ready to go. Okay, I'll get in front and I'll make sure you don't go anywhere.
Yeah, well, I guess on one of those titans, and I would say this is the titan of the sport that we always overlook, Logan Fontaine. Like,
Yes.
I wish we could go back and just break down the footage of the sprint finish in lap one, because that was simply sensational from Logan. He timed his run perfectly, coming up to Mark at the right time, making sure that Christoph wasn't able to get away from David with too much free space on the outside of the course, and then pushing all three of them, of course, with multiple years of experience racing at this level and higher, outside of the course and into the pontoon, ultimately avoiding real last minute charge for that money. That is incredible racing, and now he's just sat back a bit and tucked in. That's good stuff.
Yeah, you're so right. He is so smart about the way he races, and I think because he's never like that headline at the front, taking the charge on swimmer, we never really give him his credit. But what an incredible judgment! What incredible judgment to find his gap, find his space, bide his time, not burn his energy too much, and take the opportunity when it opened, and saw that door open and just ran straight through it. And it's $1,000, isn't it, for the sprint lap? So already coming away with $1,000 prize. I can't quite read, unfortunately, the yellow card. I'm not surprised we're having one this early on in the race, if I'm being completely honest. It is a stacked field in terms of the depth that we have in it, and with so many swimmers from Spain as well. I think that's number 78. I'll just have a look at who that will be. But so many swimmers from Spain, sorry, giving like such depth to the field, and also numbers as well.
Yeah, and in addition to the Spaniards, of course, the Italians using this as a key event for selections as they get ready for that World Championship team. So once more, I think that might have been Hector Pardo, in fact, Alice.
Yes, it is. Yeah, Hector getting a yellow card. So already this early on into the race, I've just be like, please just play it safe, guys.
Yeah.
Like, it's it's really not worth getting getting red carded. You'll
Yeah,
get out and say, "Oh, I didn't really need to bump into that swimmer, did I?" So,
yeah.
um, yeah, hopefully he'll see the warning and play it safe.
Well, and we saw in the women's race, of course, an unfortunate disqualification to Mariah Denigan, one of the favourites to contend going into that race. So would hate to see the same fate for Hector, and I'm sure he'll be watching himself very carefully through the back end of this race. A little bit of a split opening up here. I don't think this one will substantiate, but what it will do is trim the size of this lead group. What we're seeing, as you see on your screen now, is there's 6 athletes that have just separated themselves from the rest of the field. One athlete just trying to get their own water going into this turn buoy, and a group of about 8 across. What that creates, as we've discussed, Alice, of course, is the chaos of who's going to be the swimmer that actually makes the charge across and jumps in behind the feet. And 8 across is really hard to determine who's actually going to make that move, not only for the pack, but also for the individual to get there.
Oh gosh, and just the thought of say you're on the outside of either of those packs, on the left or the right. When this slams together as it goes around the buoy, and it will have to, that is a fact. If you're in the middle of that, or even on the edges, it is chaotic. So if you're on the left-hand edge going widest around the buoy, you are probably swimming, honestly, at some points, maybe 10 to 15 meters wider. Like, I know it sounds like a crazy amount of distance, but it can be that wide sometimes. If you're in the middle, I mean, who knows where you're going to end up? You could end up being um, moving forward a couple rows because there's so much chaos in front of you that you manage to find a little gap, or you could end up being spat out the back and losing your stroke and being stopped dead. And then, of course, if you're on the right-hand side of the course, you have to squeeze around the buoy, and we have seen disqualifications from Soma Bay of people going under the buoy. So don't try and get smart or cute with it. You need to keep it clean. So honestly, in either position of those, there are pros and cons, but so many things that you have to contend with. And you're just seeing it now. So many arms, so many bodies, everybody trying to like contend for space. And you see a Brazilian swimmer just completely got stuck there, probably lost about 15 to 20 places because he got stuck on the buoy and is now like fighting to get back in front. And the amount of energy that drains from you is so difficult. I've been in that position many times. I think every open water swimmer, if you've done enough competitions, you will unfortunately end up in that position at once. And
Oh,
unfortunately, sometimes the only way to not deal with that is to do what Ollie Klement's doing at the moment and just get out in front. And he is creating
yeah.
some clear water behind him.
He's got a bit of a gap here. This is an impressive shot, and I was just gonna say with Ollie, he looks like he's matured ever so slightly in his stroke. He looks like, I mean, he looks like Florian Wellbrock, to be completely honest, and that's come through I guess a bit of time in the gym developing those lats and biceps and triceps, or sitting on the pool boy for a long time as well. So yeah, this is an interesting move from Ollie. I don't know who's sitting in behind him. If it's Christoph, that lead's not going to last very long. But good to see that he has taken that sort of next step in development, which sounds absolutely ridiculous to say to an Olympic silver medalist.
I know, this is what's frustrating me about the way that I think about Ollie Klemet as a swimmer. He is so um, the way that I look at him is when there is a job to be done, he will turn up and do it. So qualifying for Worlds, turned up and did it excellently. Le Earlier than that at the Olympic Games, silver medalist, incredible. We just haven't quite seen that consistency from him. And that's why sometimes I'm always like, I see him on the program, like, oh my gosh, yeah, Ollie Clement, of course, Olympic silver medalist. But I think because um, he's not quite like Logan Fontaine or Marc Antoine, who are kind of the kings of consistency in open water swimming, where they're typically always within touching distance of the podium, if not on it. We haven't quite seen that from Ollie Clement yet, which what you're talking about, his maturity with his stroke, I'm really excited to see if this is that kind of turning point for him where we see him consistently at World Cups, at World Championships, being that guy in terms of I'm going to be up there consistently on the podium.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the hardest thing as we talked about in the women's race, is the versatility to be consistent, especially when you look at a field like this. And that is just such a powerful shot of what open water swimming is really about, truly embracing the chaos around those turn cans. And that's why we've seen such a variety in racing styles continue to develop over the last couple of years. Oh, it looks like Ollie's just got some clear water once again. It is hard to pick up on this shot. Christoph potentially just moving away from his feet, or in fact Ollie was swimming offline, as we mentioned.
And shockingly, I think this will be the first time today we have mentioned Coach Byrne. I don't think we mentioned him in the women's race. I'm trying to think. I don't know if Jeanette Spilwox is with that training group, but anyway, this is the first time we mentioned Coach Byrne, and one of his swimmers being up front leading with Ollie Klemet, Olympic silver medalist. That, like, as I use the word titan, I'm going to throw it back again. That titan of a training group where Selena's burnt with burnt as well. Okay, thank you for that. Just he will always get someone on a podium, won't he?
Yeah.
Like, always at a competition, there will always be one of his athletes on the podium. And I think I said this in the podcast. Shameless plug to the podcast that both Will and I do in terms of open water swimming. We do a preview of each World Cup and the World Championships coming up as well, and then a review. So do go check that out. We get into depth with so many of the athletes and what we expect from them. But in terms of that, I think I'm predicting they'll get at least 6 medals, at least.
Oh wow! You did
the
the
World
maths?
Championships.
That's
Yeah,
very
I have.
good.
You know, I can't lie. I haven't even done the maths. This is just me throwing out an arbitrary number. But my expectations of this training group, and I'm only just talking about the open water events with the 6 medals. To be honest, there are so many medals up for grabs. I think 6 might have even completely undershot it. If I'm being completely honest, it's such a strong training group and really has the best athletes in the world at the moment. As, of course, there are others around that, but in terms of depth within one training group, it's something else.
Yeah, I mean, when you start to pull apart like what they do in the pool as well, and that's why I ask if you did the maths, because not only open water chances to win medals, but in the pool as well through Lucas
Yes.
Martins, like that. Whatever they're doing, and Isabella Gosa and everyone, you know, I'm not gonna count out anyone for a shot in the pool either. So when you pull that apart, it's a pretty scary prospect, and that's why I likened Ollie to Florian, and you know, we reminisce on this moment a lot, Alice, and very similar to today. In fact, racing 2023, previously holding the World Cup participation record with 150 athletes. Today, of course, 159 athletes. I saw, and you saw, and the world saw, the arrival of Ollie Klemet on the international senior stage, where he clawed back a 1.5-minute gap to swim into the top 7, but not only swim into the top 7 of that race, the leader of that race, the man that actually broke away, was none other than Gregorio Paltrineri, and he did that and then got onto the podium. When like, I'm pretty sure everyone sat up and was like, what did we just witness? And this is the evolution
Yeah.
of it.
Absolutely. I remember being sat at home in my garden, and I wasn't actually watching the stream. I was just looking at the results, and all of a sudden, I think he popped up in like 5th. I can't remember where he finished. Sorry, but he just came through suddenly, and I was like, wait, where was this swimmer? Where was this guy for the rest of the race? And you look back and realize he came back from a 1:30 deficit, which is honestly I really, it's tough to say this because there's so many amazing efforts in open water swimming, but I've never seen or heard of anything like that. You do not claw back distances like that. Whatever he did, incredible. And then right now, you are so right about his stroke. I was just looking at it, and it's just like watching another Florian. It'd be really interesting to know like what's happened in training to be able to like help transform someone's stroke into this, and he looks incredible right now, really smooth. I'd say he probably just has a slightly higher stroke rate than Florian, not that I want to compare the two swimmers across each other. Of course, them being in the same training group will play a factor in this, but he looks really good, and this is what I'm talking about. I've been holding my breath with Ollie Klemet and just waiting for him to take moments like this on, is what I'm thinking. I always feel really bad saying that, because Olympic silver medalist, already so accomplished. You know, he could retire now and it's such an incredible career. But I think there's a level of dominance to the sport in there that we haven't yet seen, and I think it's coming through now.
Yeah, as we mentioned in the women's race, or throughout the women's race, it's just such an exciting time to be a fan. And you know, when we talk about the likes of Ollie really starting to morph into that athlete that is Florian, and you know, we don't say that lightly. Florian Wellbrock, Olympic champion, world champion, one of the best of all time. He is a phenomenal athlete, but that is a scary prospect to the entire field, not only because of the, I guess, talent that those athletes hold, but imagine having a race where Ollie and Florian are working together. Obviously, they represent the same federation, but they swim in the same squad and they train next to each other day in, day out. So it would hate to be looking at the start line and thinking, oh no, there's not now one of them, there's two of them I need to worry about.
Exactly, and you know, just throwing it to the women's event briefly, this is how I'm looking at the women's event with Gosei and Johnson. I mean, who knows where this is going to end up, especially for LA when we're looking at Olympic places and medals on the line. We are moving in a direction of open water swimming where there's a chance of, we have seen it kind of play out a little bit already in certain races, but a chance of real communication and teamwork, if that's the right word, between athletes, where you know they can really bounce off of each other and, you know, take the lead and keep driving the pace of the race forward. So you're so right. I mean, I thought this with when Rosowski popped up and he's suddenly able to do what Florian does as well, and in a different style, but still, you know, able to get in and win races from the front of the race. And I was kind of like, oh gosh, no, this isn't just a Florian thing. This is an open water thing now. This is cemented into open water swimming for the men's, especially, that you have to have a good, strong pace at the front. The races will be won from the top 10, maybe the top 15 if you're lucky, but they will typically always be won from the top 10 now, which is kind of crazy to say, thinking about where we came from with the event.
Yeah, and I guess it speaks to just how special Christoph is, that he's seen that transition out. You know, he popped onto the scene back in 2017 where he stormed through in Budapest, a home world championships for him. So to see him, I guess, morph through the process that was Jordan Wilimowski and of course Ferry Wellbrock and a host of other athletes that were on top of the world at that point, to where it is now, where, you know, you really have to be around that 1440 mark for the 1500 to be competitive on an international level. And then what he did last year, where won both the 5 and 10k at the world champs and also the Olympic 10k, truly special. But one athlete I did want to highlight as we went through the end of lap 2 there, Alice, was Logan Fontaine, who he's dropped from first in that lap 1 to 16th, but just 9.9 seconds off the lead. So it's still very densely packed, but definitely in a spot of bother should there be a big move here by our leader in Ollie Klemet. So we'll keep an eye on Logan. It's a bit of a gamble, but as we saw in the women's race, it certainly can pay out on its dividends, as we saw with Angela Martinez taking gold in that race. So this is, like, we often focus with our cameras on the first athletes, the couple leading the race, but there's a lot of dynamics that happen in that lead pack that are hard to see from the camera. But we'll keep an eye on Logan as he starts to make his way through. And you know, what we said in Egypt, I think still stands true. The race in the men's at the moment sits in front of wherever Dario Verani is, and still Dario Verani's in that top 20.
Yeah, I just want to highlight your point as well about not really knowing the dynamics behind. When you think about what's happening in open water race, you have, in this case, at the men's race, 82 athletes. So that's 82 different stories, and then each lap has its own story, and then each straight and each turn buoy also has its own story as well. So there are literally thousands of different situations which are playing out during these races. Some of these situations will be very positive for the athletes, some of them will be very negative, and unfortunately we will never, because there's so much data in that, we'll never really get to know, how did Martinez like come through? At what point did she feel like this was hers, that she was ready to take on that lead? Where was that moment decided? Of course, we get that information a lot better at the front of the race, but it's just so difficult in the middle of the pack when you see so many swimmers. It can be difficult to pick out who is who. But my point is there's so much going on in there that leads to the result that we get at the end of the race. So, like you said with Logan Fontaine, 16th place, but only 9 seconds back. It shows that whilst there is a bit of a divide here, there are still so many people and so many bodies in the middle, from maybe like fourth to 20th place, that he can work with, that he can move past. He obviously has the skill to be able to overtake when he needs to, and has an amazing sprint as well as good tactical decision making. So at that point, a swimmer like that, you can never count out from being able to swim back into the podium.
And that's why it's so interesting to watch it play out. And you're right there. And we talked before about the sort of team dynamics as we get this wider shot of the back of this lead group. Um, when we have the likes of Florian and Ollie who race in similar ways, and similarly across other federations like the Hungarians, the French are all over the place. Like Logan's way back. Currently, Mark's sitting in third. Mark loves sitting towards the front of the race and trying to stay in touch, but never wants to take a stroke at the front of the race until the very end. So it doesn't always work that way, but when it does, it certainly creates its own challenges.
Yes, definitely. It is a challenging. It is, yeah, it's a challenging tactic to take on because it relies on quite a few things falling into place. You need the stars to align in a certain way, so to speak. But there are athletes who do this consistently and well. However, the evolution, sorry, the evolution of open water swimming has meant that style of swimming, of only leading on the last stroke, is like a waning or a dulling experience for athletes at the moment. It's very rare now. We didn't even see it with the women's race. Whilst it was more typical from a women's race that we see, it was still Martinez leading basically the last lap and finishing first with Celine Ryder tucked in behind her. But we didn't see anybody suddenly come over the top of them to get that win. So um, unfortunately for some athletes, the way that this has gone is you have to win from the front. There may be some athletes who drop off and tire, but we are typically seeing the wins coming from, definitely in the men's race anyway, probably like the top eight. And I say the top eight when we get into like lap, gosh, we're already on lap 3, sorry, into lap 4 and 5. This race is going so quickly, they're swimming so fast.
No, you're correct once again, Alice. And I'm not sure how, or when that break's going to come. I suppose, I mean, even if we look at the women's race that's just been played out, Martinez sort of almost came forward by surprise with some really crafty turns. I don't think she would have been expecting to shoot forward as quickly as she expected. So I'm just equally will be surprised in the men's race. And one of those names that surprised us back in Egypt was Sashavelli, who's yet to sort of feature at the front of this race. I can't imagine it'll be too far away, but
He is
I
tucked
remember
in there, yeah.
yeah, and I remember we both sort of gave him credit for one of the swims of the day because he did shoot through with about 1,500 meters to go, and you know, if it wasn't for Florian sort of stifling his last minute effort, he might have, you know, swum away to his first World Cup win. And more importantly, he sort of set the win up for Florian because he injected that speed that Florian was then able to double off and really swim away for the win. So I think Sasha will push at some point in this race. As we mentioned, the same as the Italians, the French team is, well, the French men's team is arguably the hardest team in the world to make. So yeah, it's all up in the air as we approach, you know, just a tick over halfway in lap 3.
I was literally about to say that about the men's French team. It's got 3 swimmers who I expect to be in the top 10 at the end of today. So you've got Marc-Antoine, Logan Fontaine and Sasha Velli. I would expect them all to be in the top 10. Obviously things might not go their way, etc. But other nations typically will have, I mean, Italy, like I said, if you defeat one Italian, there's always another Italian waiting to take their place. So they are very close to that. They have more swimmers, but maybe less for concentration, if I may be so bold. Of course, you have Palcineri, Vrani, Guidi, Sanzula. You know, I can literally keep going down a list of naming it. Fantastic Italian swimmers, but I think in terms of what Fontaine, Marc-Antoine and Sasha Velli are looking to do is just, it's kind of a different beast, if that makes sense. It's just like 3 very concentrated swimmers who all deserve to be at the World Championships, but unfortunately one of them will miss out in the 10K anyway.
Yeah, that's going to be, well, I guess speaks to the introduction of the 3-kilometer knockout. You know, we have so many great athletes that have always been able to represent federations at World Champs, as we see one of our athletes unfortunately having to withdraw from today's race. So as I was saying, the way it's been set up previously, the 5 kilometers and the 10 kilometers, it has been easy for federations to select just 2 athletes for the male and the female events. But now with the introduction of the 3K knockout, you are going to start to see bigger teams going to the World Championships. And what that enables is that next generation to push through and get experience racing at a World Champs, where it is all stakes on the line. So when we look at someone like Sasha Velli, you know, in order to make that French team, you really almost have to be top 5 in the world, which is crazy to think that there's 3 Frenchmen potentially in that top 5 in the world. So now we'll be seeing him, if he doesn't race in the 5 or the 10, potentially racing in the knockout. And I guess that will be where we see an evolution in the sport, is who takes that experience and turns it into what's required at the highest level.
That's such a good point. I was actually wondering, what way is this going to go? So historically, countries would normally do, you get the 10K, the top 2 get the 10K, the next 2 get the 5K. But we are seeing more and more swimmers now go, actually, I want to compete at everything, you know. I don't want to turn up and maybe just do, I say just do, but do the 10K and then the relay. I think a lot of swimmers will be like, I've earned my 10K space. I'm also excellent in the 5K and also deserve to do the 3K knockout. So what space is there for athletes to step into the third and fourth place athletes to step into that? And this is where selection policies are going to have to be very clear and very deliberate in, do we do a 10K race and take the top 2 from that, and then we do a 5K race and take the top 2 from that? So kind of keep the options open for athletes if they want to do both at their selection races or something like that. So I'm really intrigued to see how this shapes up, especially for countries like Italy, like France, where they have a plethora of swimmers, a pool of swimmers to be able to draw upon. Who are they putting in what? Because realistically, you do want your best swimmers turning up to each race, especially if they are willing to do so and capable. And the evolution of the sport, as I keep talking about, has allowed more swimmers to take that on, if that makes sense. You know, we used to see, as I said, people just do the 10, but now everybody wants to swim everything. So who is going to get the swims?
Yeah, well, a lot to unpack there, Alice, and keen to do so. But as we see this shot here of the lead of the men's race, out on the top of your screen currently, it is Ollie Klemet of Germany. He's just decided to take a different route from Christoph. We did see this in the second lap, but Christoph ultimately just ducking across in lap 2 to get in behind of Ollie. As we mentioned in the women's race, sometimes this can be purposeful and tactical to try and get the whole field to swim further and ultimately extend the distance of the race out from 10 kilometers. This lap, Christoph deciding he's not going to be bothered chasing the German, but this also gives Ollie a great opportunity to look directly at the pack. So Christoph is going to have to swim in the straightest line possible to mitigate the risk of Ollie getting away. But this is how breaks happen, and not just at the front of the race, but this is how breaks happen in the packs as well. And when we talked about it in the women's race, we also spoke about the opportunity to skip a feed if you can sense a gap opening. So we'll keep our eyes on that. Just a couple things that I wanted to reiterate from the start of the race, confirming that it was Logan Fontaine taking that sprint lap. So in a true tactical masterclass, Logan Fontaine on top. I implore anyone that is into open water swimming, whether you are a beginner or an expert, to go back and just unpack exactly how that finish ended up. But to circle back to your comments, Alice, before we dive back into this gap that is opening up, it's going to be interesting to see who will be the first ever athlete to win 4 gold medals in the open water discipline at the World Championships, because it may be this year, it may be in 2 years' time, but it's something that we'll be eyeing off for sure, because it will take an absolute masterclass from a range of events to get that done.
Yeah, definitely. I would have confidence of some swimmers getting 3 in terms of the individual races, but so much hinges on your country having a good man or having a good fellow gender person, so man or woman, depending on if we're talking about a man or a woman, and then of course of the opposite sex as well, having a really, really, really strong team. And I do think we're going to see potentially, especially because we have so much time between the pool swimming, or between the open water first and then the pool swimming, I really hope countries actually kind of host auditions for opportunities to swim in the relay and the 3K knockout, because they're obviously much more typical to pool swimming in a sense of the 10K being a very different race, whereas the 3K knockout, the furthest that you're swimming at once is 1500 meters. And the majority of pool swimmers are 1500 meter swimmers, whilst it is still open water swimming, will still have the capabilities and the aerobic and muscular endurance to cope with that. So I'd love to see countries, maybe not this year because it's probably a little bit too soon, but looking forward to 2027 World Championships, kind of take that on and take on that possibility. But sorry, I'm just going to pull it back to the race now, because as you're speaking about Ollie Klemet and kind of opening up that gap, I think this is what I'm really enjoying about this race. There's a lot of trying to find the right words, messages. As I said before, there's a lot of like mind games. That's the word. There's mind games being played. You know, with Ollie Klemet taking that wider line, forcing Rosowski to kind of drop his feet and make that decision, and it has opened up. I would call it a healthy gap.
Well, it's deliberate. That's what I would say. It's a deliberate gap here by Ollie, and he will know that he's got no one on his feet. He's seen it play out. So Alice, if you're Ollie, quick decision, yes or no, are you taking a feed here?
Oh, I don't know. I actually don't know. It really could go 5K. I think you got to take it.
Yeah,
I
54
think
minutes
take it.
through. That's lightning fast.
So quick.
Yeah, so I think he will. He looks like he's coming in for a feed, and that speaks to, I guess, the character that he is. And as you've mentioned, he when he needs to deliver, he does, and he's done that here through the feed station, coming in purposefully, not too interested about giving up that lead to Christoph. Christoph, he didn't react as sort of chaotically as I would have expected, but that is the experience that is the Olympic and world champion. He knows that if he needs to shut that down quickly, I guess he believes he can. But what it has done is just completely strung out that lead group. And this, I will be very interested to hear the thoughts of not only the top athletes, but some of the athletes sitting around that 20th mark to hear their thoughts on this race, because it looks absolutely deathly hard out there.
Yeah, it's one of those where you're sat in like 15th, 20th position, kind of hoping like the person in front of you keeps swimming fast, you're swimming fast, you're kind of hoping that it just, you know, the elastic band breaks at some point and that it does slow down. Hopefully the band breaks in the sense of it slows down, not you falling off the back. But it's really challenging, and you can see this is just behind the yellow hat. I believe that's Hector Pardo. There's a gap there. It's very small, but there is a gap, and it's about one person's body length. But that is how, the front of the race is suddenly gone over like 500 meters. That can really get drawn out, and then you go around the next turning buoy, and you see that that's drawn out into 3 spaces, and it's so hard to claw back that space and that time. So just touching on the top 10 that we saw roll through there, as we were saying about the 3 Frenchmen with Veli, Olivier and Fontaine all up there. I just want to shout out Kovac Serez of, I'm really sorry if I got your name wrong, I got his name wrong, but another Hungarian who we haven't spoken about. I've definitely seen him in the relays before. He's very strong, consistent, and it looks like he's having a fantastic race here. He's currently sat in 3rd position just behind Rozovsky.
Yeah, and as we saw in the women's ranks, those next gen of Hungarian open water swimmers already starting to knock on the door, and Kovac Serez certainly doing that.
See the continued dominance of Ollie Klemet up at the front here. He's doing so well, and you were so right, Will, about his stroke technique. It's looking very strong, a continued effort, and Rozovsky sat in behind him with his strong and powerful stroke as well. It looks like they're both kicking quite hard too. I don't know where this is going to progress. There are so many fantastic swimmers behind them in Olivier, Fontaine, Veli, Hector Pardo sat in there as well. I think we saw Bailey Armstrong potentially. And also just want to shout out Joey Tepper as well, recently qualified for the USA team for World Championships at their nationals. And he's sat in 10th position going through that intermediate gate as well. So he's looking in good form too.
Well, Tepper, one of those athletes that's really had to overcome a lot of adversity over the last couple of years, and to see him not only making the senior US team but also representing them in the 10 kilometers is a great sight. So well done to Joey for fighting through, and also well done to Ivan Puskovic, who finished 3rd in that race, so missed out on being selected in the 10 kilometers, but came back the day after and finished in 1st over that 5K distance. So the US stock starting to raise, and as we continuously say, Alice, it's great to have them racing at the World Cup stage, because the more experience they get to this level, the faster they're going to be over that 10-kilometer distance. And the scarier the side is when, especially on the women's side, when you've got the likes of Claire Weinstein and Brinkley Hansen just absolutely charging through the ranks.
Yes, definitely. This is the thing about America, we have historically, Jordan Willimowski, Ashley Switchell, and Hayley Anderson. The juniors were never quite lived up to the same of the seniors at that period of time, but we're definitely seeing it come through now. With Brinkley Hansen, Claire Weinstein, and I feel really bad. There was another fantastic swimmer at the World Juniors, who I will go back
Oh
and
yeah,
recall her name shortly.
yeah.
But
My
they basically
apologies.
dominated World Juniors, right?
Yeah.
The girls won every single individual event, the 5, the 7.5, and the 10, and then I'm pretty confident they took the relay.
Yeah.
Or was that France? Oh gosh. Anyway, there's so many incredible athletes coming through that program at the moment, and we see that dominance in the pool as always, and it's a scary prospect that we are getting that from them in the open water now as well, or that it's coming through, shall we say.
So as we have a look at the lead of the race here, it still is Ollie Klemet out in front of Krzysztof Rozowski. This is the first time we've seen the Hungarian race on the international stage for 2025. Almost looks like he's trying to jump up onto the hip of Klemet here, Alice. But he's come back in good form, has Krzysztof. He's been fighting hard in the pool. Top 10 in the world currently over the 800 and 1500 meter distance. So clearly been doing some work.
Yes, definitely. Definitely, it's another tool for you to be able to swim fast, basically. I think for the men especially, it's definitely become more prominent, but you still can be a fantastic open water swimmer without being one of the best in the world in pool swimming. Point to Hector Pardo. I think his PB might be about 15:20, and obviously in comparison to Wellbrock's 14, I think 30, 35 or something is obviously really crazy fast.
Yeah.
So there are options is basically what I'm saying, but you can't swim 16 minutes if you're a man and expect to be in the top 10. You need to have some serious speed in you, and then whatever your tools are in your toolbox in that sense, you need to play to your strengths. So we've seen Wellbrock say, I'm actually a really, really good pool swimmer. I'm going to take that energy into open water swimming. And then someone like Hector Pardo, or maybe, I'm not sure what Logan Fontaine's PBs are, but I suppose, a bit more tactical and choose your battles within the race, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. And it's just interesting to see where those battles do take place. Of course, not often do we see them necessarily at the front of the race, which is why it was so exciting to see Logan really come to fruition. But it certainly is happening in this lead pack. It's starting to thin out a bit. Alice, put yourself in this situation. What are you sort of looking for if you're sitting towards the back of that group? Who are you sitting up, assessing? Where do you need to jump across to, and how is that going to impact the end of the race?
So are you talking about if you were sat like slightly further back?
Yeah. And we've often said, Dario Verani is where the race starts, and anything behind that is race over.
Yeah.
So I guess if you were towards that 25 to 30 mark in this pack, what are you looking for, and how are you actually moving forward?
Time is running out. It sounds really blunt, straight to the point, but your time is running out very quickly. I think this race is progressing honestly faster than some people were expecting. Of course, we expect the sprint lap to be fast, that's a given, but I still think this pace has been kept like very hot, very fast. I think Ollie Klemet's in like total control at the moment. I don't know if that's going to change over in a second with Rozowski really looking to like surge up alongside him, but I don't think Ollie wants to let it go by the looks of it. So if you're sat in 25th or 30th position, this is when you really need to start moving into a stronger position, because the last lap, it used to be the bit where you kind of still had time, but I think with the pace that has been happening in these races that we've seen across the men's race over the past few years, and increasingly so in the women's, you don't have the last lap to play around with things anymore. The lap 5 is the new lap 6, and then lap 6 is kind of like whatever you've got left. Ooh, just saw a swimmer might go under the buoy. I don't know if the officials saw that. Sorry, and just a quick comment. We did find out that the yellow card from Hector Pardo was before going under the buoy. So we saw a lot of disqualifications for that in Soma Bay. And again, we see the officials not playing with that, not taking any chances, making the rules very well known that you don't do that. It's very dangerous. But my point is, if you sat in position 25th to 30th, you need to start moving now. This time goes much quicker than you anticipate and than you expect, and you need to be making a move consistently every straight, so it really adds up when you're going into the last straight on the last lap, that you are in a stronger position than when you started.
And one of the, I guess, key points that you've shared on broadcast previously is with one of your races, you actually saw Sharon Van Ruendal shooting forward and were able to sit yourself in alignment with Sharon. And just, you know, for some of these, I guess, less experienced athletes, or maybe not with the firepower that a star like Sharon has, how important is it to pick those moves up and not have to try and do it all yourself?
Oh my gosh, like honestly, that was it was some of the best senior open water racing I'd ever experienced. I was just sat in her wave. Really, really special to see how she just found space, and it was something I'd never seen before. You know, you get an opportunity to swim behind a swimmer like Sharon and see how they just keep skipping forward and moving forward. And I was like Velcro to her for as long as I could be. And any swimmers in this race that I kind of were at the stage that I was at with my career of being, I think, I was maybe 19 or 20, so fairly youngish. It's a great opportunity if you can find those swimmers. The unfortunate thing about the men's race at the moment is that all of the swimmers are at the front. You might get 2 or 3 in terms of a Varani or a Palcineri at this case, or maybe Logan Fontaine as well, who have that capability to move forward and move through a pack. But unfortunately, for the nature of the men's race at the moment, they're all at the front. So unless you're in 10th position, your pickings are slim for those swimmers that you are confident are going to be in the top 10 anyway. So um, basically, it is a very different race from what I experienced in those moments of getting to sit behind like a swimmer like Sharon. But if you find yourself in that position as any athlete at any stage, it's well worth sticking on it and trusting the fact that the athlete will be breaking into the top 10.
Yeah, it's one of those things though. You only really start to gain that experience from racing in these events to understand that the almost the enthusiasm, but realistically the ego that you have coming through the junior ranks, especially for some of the larger federations that do have, you know, specific junior national championships, that that dominance doesn't carry into an international stage. So being able to recognize those patterns in a race and move forward with them is incredibly important. As I think we're seeing another gap, or it's not so much gaps anymore, just athletes falling off the back of this lead group. Speaking to the speed in which Klemet is really asserting now, an hour and 10 minutes into this race. So what I am starting to get a little bit worried about from this point, Alice, is just how much effort Klemet is having to lie down at the front of the race, and how easy not only Rozovsky but the chase group in Marc-Antoine, who's just pulled off to the left-hand side of your screen there. That was a very deliberate and considered move, and the pack is adapting accordingly.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you're so right. I was thinking he's been doing a lot of the work from the front. He created a gap, opened it up, it got shut down, but it was still sat in front. And honestly, really hard to tell what's happening here. I think you have towards the right Ollie Klemet, and then just the green hat next to him is Rozovsky. But is Marc-Antoine in front? It looks like he's quite far in front, and
Yeah.
you've got potentially Sachavelli next to him, Hector Pardo tucked in behind there, and then I can't tell who the white hat is, unfortunately, but just suddenly a complete change, a complete mix-up of what we've seen for the past 45 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. No, once more on the money. So when we get this side shot, we'll definitely be able to pick it up. I think Ollie Clement has taken the reins again. But what I think that move did was Mark was never going to be able to just swim around Christoph. Christoph is the hardest athlete in the field to swim around because he's not only one of the smartest, but he's also one of the heaviest and strongest in the field. So you really have to lay down a lot of energy to get around the big Hungarian. But also, I think it's just sending a little subliminal message to Ollie to stop swimming everyone off course, because this is the third lap in a row now where Clement has pushed the course wide. And, someone like Mark, who has been proven to swim the field off course, knows exactly the tactics that's trying to be laid out here by the German, and that's exactly what's playing into the hands of Ollie. At this point in the race, he wants to keep it as long and as hard as possible. If they swam 15 kilometers, it would play into the hands of Ollie Clement. What he doesn't want is to leave Christoph with any energy coming into the final couple of laps. And not only Christoph, but all of the Italians that we're yet to see charging through, because Gregorio is going to be in there for a fight. Marcelo Guidi is going to be there for a fight. And that Dario Varani is one of the best finishers in the world. So there are a lot of big names that are just within striking distance that will be absolutely rattling around the head of the German, who currently holds control.
That is such a good point about Clement taking them off course and Olivier being like, I know what you're doing. It takes one to know one. Sort it out, basically. We're not going to let you continually get away with this. You've had basically like over 3 laps of being able to dictate where we're swimming and, taking us wider, forcing Rozovsky to get off your feet. So we're not taking those gains into lap 5 and 6. So I don't know if Clement has changed his line, has altered his line. It'd be interesting to see. But it also shows that there's still some, not that this is a surprise, but there's still some sprint in Olivier and a whole host of other swimmers to let Clement know that he hasn't got this. He hasn't got it his own way yet. There's still so much more to play for. There's still so many people behind him, and just constantly seeing this toing and throwing of this gap opening up slightly and then closing again. But this effort from Ollie Clement to get in front and lead it like this is so well done.
Yeah, he hasn't quite finished the full formation into a Florian Wellbrook. You can see there's just a little bit more effort that's required by Ollie to maintain this lead, but certainly looking very strong. I think, is that Sasha sitting just behind, or Logan?
I think it might be Logan. I feel like Logan was in the white hat.
Yeah.
And it looks like he's got the strength in his arms to be Logan. So, I mean, you've been calling this all day, to be honest. Like, this is a great position for Logan to be sat in now. As I've been saying, going into this lap is really where you want to be making sure everything's set up, that it's all clean, and that you're ready to go.
And ready to go. We are 2 laps to swim. Ollie Clement leads the way. Logan Fontaine is in second. Rozovsky in third. Olivier Bethlehem Gravely storming into 6th. That's a great position for him. Belly, Sexerez, as you mentioned, sitting strongly in that top 8. Guidi, Dalu, Philadelphia, Pardo. So there's plenty of firepower in the top 12 as we get ready to take on the final 3.2 kilometers. It truly is anyone's race. It has been Ollie Clement just, ticking it over, making sure that in place of his teammate and compatriot in Florian Wellbrook, that the Germans still hold the front of the race and doing a great job as he opens the account for lap 5, but certainly there'd be some demons floating through the back of his head, worrying about what's to come with these big monsters behind him.
Yeah, definitely. It's like ghosts haunting him the whole way around, isn't it? Wanting to create that space opening up, and then you've got 2 big swimmers behind you with Rozovsky and Fontaine. The biggest the worst thing that could happen to Clement is um, kind of ending up sandwiched between those two, because
Yeah.
any any hope for your own water has completely gone. Like those two sat on your hip would be really, really stressful and really difficult swimming. So um, I'm hope I'm hoping I think he hopes he can just keep this lead, stay comfortably in front. It's looking like it's going to come down to a sprint finish. Like I don't know if anybody will have the capabilities to really open up a gap now, just because I think there's, as we've been saying throughout this race, there are so many people behind them who would just close that door instantly, or I say instantly, within 500 meters.
Yeah, yeah, and I suppose as well, what Ollie wasn't in the mix for that top four, so potentially he has something up his sleeve as well.
Yes, I completely agree. I feel that first lap was a great precursor to what we have coming. I think it was like perfect foreshadowing that I think we're going to have like four, maybe five people um, coming into this finish funnel at once, and it's going to be tight, it's going to be hectic. We still have a host of Italians sat behind them, ready to take that up, as well as multiple Hungarian swimmers, and then people from France, and Hector Pardo from Britain. So there are so many different scenarios in which this will play out, and as well, Dylan Gravely having an amazing swim up there too. So um, this could really. I, Oh, Rosowski just looks so good right now, doesn't he? He's just really, really pulled in front up that stroke rate. It looks like he's sitting much higher in the water, and Fontaine is really enjoying his hip.
Yeah, yeah, Fontaine would be absolutely loving this position. Sitting in where Fontaine is swimming, don't get me wrong, he would be swimming hard to hold this pace, but if he just moved a meter to the right of him, he would be working a lot harder to swim at the same speed, especially with the swimmer like Christoph, who just generates such a large wake. It's almost like sitting next to a boat, which is all due respect to Christoph Rosowski. One of the things I did want to touch on, Alice, we've talked about just how fast the men's 10 kilometers has turned into, and not just the 10, the 5, and all other men's open water pursuits. Currently in the world, the top 10 in the 800 freestyle, the 10th place, Alexander Stepanov from Russia, 7:49:36 is his time, and he's 10th in the world. He raced in Soma Bay earlier this year. David Bethlehem in 9th, Tunceli of Turkey in 8th, Rozovsky in 7th. Sven Shorts is the only athlete that there's two athletes in the top 10 that haven't expressed interest in racing the open water, the other being Lucas Martens. But Florian Walrock, Ollie Klemet in there, Dan Whiffen obviously raced in Paris, and Sam Short, the Australian, in 5th at the moment with the 7:45, has expressed a little bit of interest in potentially dabbling in the 3 kilometer knockout. So that's just that's unheard of. Almost the entire potential field at the World Champs final, all racing open water and the pool.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Let's call it what it is. It's insane. And I think this is exactly where World Aquatics have wanted this to go. Just seeing the 10K as an extension of what is offered in the pool, in having just more opportunity for distance swimmers to get in and race. And look at this pack. Look at the amount of people that are good enough and strong enough to keep up with this pace. This is really, really stacked, and like highly, highly competitive. And so with the 800 time, and the inclusion of the opportunity for pool swimmers to take on the 10K at the Olympic Games, I think it's only going to encourage more pool swimmers to get in and give it a go. As we've seen, we saw that with Dan Whiffen, saw it with Felix Olbach, we saw it with Heinrich Christensen, the Muffin Man, from Paris. So we're seeing these real opportunities for athletes to say, hey, it might not be my event, but let's get in and give it a go and see if it's for me. Now, in most of those cases, probably didn't work out for them. I think Dan Whiffen, you know, if you're getting in for the Olympic Games as your first 10K, it's always going to be a challenging experience, right? But I'm really hopeful that this inclusion will continue to excite more pool swimmers into giving open water swimming a real chance, instead of trying it once, hating it, because let's be honest,
It's tough.
everybody hates it on their first time. Yeah, it's tough. Let's call it what it is. It's a very, very difficult race. I got out of my first 10K and said, I'm never doing that again. Thanks. Yet here I am commentating on it and competed at the Olympic Games in it. So it really is, it has a host of opportunities, is the point that I'm making. And I think if you have the capabilities and the strength, endurance, and everything around it to get in and do it, go and do it. It opens so many doors.
Yeah, great advice. And the only thing I'd add to that is it's also a sport you can do for your entire life. So it takes you all around the world, and it's got a lot of perks. So by all means, come across, as we've been saying, tell a friend to tell a friend. Turning our attention back to the race, here we have 3 separate lines. This is going to be crazy into this turn can. As you see at the top of your screen, Logan Fontaine battling with Krzysztof Rozowski for the race lead. As we come across, Marc-Antoine Olivier is just going to settle in. I wish they were about 50 meters off meeting at this turn, and it would have been gnarly for those inside swimmers. It still is going to be very tight for these athletes as they come across, but everyone's seemingly playing nicely. That is just how quickly the race can change, though, Alice. Obviously, Marc-Antoine wasn't comfortable sitting where he was in the race and pulled out across, and he brought half the pack with him. And when you converge on these single point turns, it can lead to, you know, some pretty nasty situations.
Yeah, and this is where positioning at this point in the race is important the whole way around. So you see these decisions being made in the race, and this is what I was talking about, those stories. That will probably be a key story for him in terms of where he ends up finishing overall in this race.
So there we go through the turn. Logan Fontaine in front. Don't often see that, or just the clamoring over each other. And as we've seen, the crackdown this year around making sure all the athletes get around the can, not ducking under, did so well. But I'm sure we'll see if there's any cards that pop up after that turn. That was pretty crazy, and sort of speaks to what we were talking to, just how intense those turns can be, especially with a pack this big and this fast.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, we've still got so many people tucked in there, really making the people at the front work. You know, you see Ollie Klemet currently in about 5th or 6th position. He hasn't been able to really like blow the field apart in a way that I think he wanted to, because it was just constantly being dragged back in to him, you know, whether that was Rozowski or Marc-Antoine, making sure that he didn't get too far away. And we see the 3 Frenchmen, as we've been speaking about. I mean, as I'm saying, it will, whichever 2 qualify for the World Championships, I feel so bad for the 3rd person who's missing out, because they all genuinely deserve to be there. I would be confident that all 3 of them would be in the top 10 if they were able to race.
Yeah. I guess in the piece of history that is open water swimming and world aquatics.
Yeah, definitely. And just, I really love the inclusion of this on the leg. And how unfortunate, we see a red card from Hector Pardo, getting confirmation that is for going under the buoy too many times. So as was mentioned, you know, if you play those games, the officials are very much looking out for it. You know, that is something they're very well aware of and are looking to prevent and punish.
Initially disqualified in Soma Bay, with that result being overturned, and ultimately a top 5 position for the Frenchman. So I'm sure he'll battle hard. He's one of the toughest competitors in the field. I said on his introduction, like one of the most confident, and that speaks volumes to him as a person. confident in his own ability to perform, as you mentioned, Alice. Not maybe on paper the most or the favourites to compete at this level with a 15-20 in the pool, but just such a great racer, and it's always such a shame when you see those red flags handed out.
Yeah, definitely. And it's such a good point about calling back to Sasha Veli because he was disqualified very early on in the race in Soma Bay. I think it was towards the end of lap two or lap one or two, sorry. And that was, of course, overturned. So um, hopefully, I'm sure, as I know them quite well, the British delegation that will be representing Hector and Britain out there will be already looking to put their case forward and try and get him reinstated into the race. So him concentrating and focusing on the race is what he needs to do right now. If he does know that he's been disqualified, sometimes it can be really hard to read those boards when you're swimming. Um, I'm sorry, I just want to put it back to my point real quick before it showed up about the red flag of the race being in Ibiza. I I think it's so cool. It's so exciting. Of course, known as more of a party place, but I think that's really exciting for the athletes to um, be able to race in such a beautiful, fantastic venue. The island is stunning. It has so much rich culture and history. Then also get to enjoy the other things which Ibiza has to offer. So, like the history or maybe less so the party scene as it's in season, but just it's fun and gives them um, just some really cool and vibrant places to visit. Getting to say you've swam for your country in Ibiza, in what is one of the most famous islands in the world, is a really, really cool thing to be able to boast.
Yeah, and that is one of the new stops this year. But you look at some of the other opportunities. Racing in Soma Bay, just absolutely incredible to race in the Red Sea, and the resort vibes that gave off. But we moved from here to Setable, which has just been an absolute like stalwart of a venue, hosting so many memories through generations of swimmers now, specifically in alignment to qualifying for the Olympics. And then, moving on from that, Golfo Aranchi later this year. We've seen it previously hold the record for participants. I'm sure they'll be eager to get that record back later this year, but just such a beautiful place to race. Last year, Junior Worlds in Algera, it truly paints a great picture of what open water swimming can be about. And we've seen that not only at a World Cup stop, but all over the world as well. These incredible destinations wanting to show off just how good they are. And we're all for it for sure. Just looking down the camera to see these athletes take on these incredible conditions.
Definitely, and look at how bunched up it is now. This is anybody's race to win or lose, to be honest. You see Logan Fontaine kind of get dragged back into it. Got an Italian swimmer there. I do not feel confident in naming which Italian swimmer it is because, as you can see at the bottom of your screen, we have literally four Italians in a line. So could be any one of them. And then the three Frenchmen as well, with Rosowski, looking like he's back into that strong swimming that we saw at the start. I think it was the start of this lap, yes. It's setting up for an explosive final lap.
And so to that point then, Alice, we saw Ollie Klemet do the majority of the work through the opening laps after the end of lap one. He's moved back through the field because the field is almost swum around him. But do you think this break is almost giving him a chance to re-energize? And can he strike late, or do you think it's curtains for Ollie Klemet?
I'd like to think there's still a possibility. It's also clumped together still, that it's not. It's anybody's race to win or lose at this point. Is what I'm saying. Could easily see Logan Fontaine doing what he did in the first lap and coming over the top of Rosowski here. I mean, Sasha Veli, he is not letting these two men out of his sight. He is really making them worry about their spaces, to be honest. Marc-Antoine Olivier as well as Logan Fontaine have been on these teams for a number of years, and Sasha Veli has been coming up for a number of years as well. So whilst only being 20 years of age this year, I think, already so dominant and really cementing himself as somebody that they have to watch out for, that will be taking their spaces. But uh, as we were saying, do you know, with comparing it to the women's race for Martinez, where she was able to find that space and go, I think
Yeah.
the same thing is happening here in the men's race in
Was
terms
this
of
Greg, right?
Rosowski has, yeah. Oh, is it Greg?
Greg, I believe.
Good,
Looks like
oh,
Greg.
good for him. I was gonna say I hadn't seen him in any of the like. Oh, good for him. That is
That's
fantastic to
huge.
see. That is so big. So he's been he hasn't been on it as much as we used to with Gregorio Palchinero, speaking completely plainly. Obviously, Olympic champion, Olympic medalist in open water, a fantastic swimmer, but he hasn't quite been himself. And I say that it was one race, it was Soma Bay, but he's looking absolutely fantastic here. I don't know where he came from. I need to look back at the results and see where he was in the lap before this, but I don't remember seeing him down to 20th place. So he has came back from so far. And sorry, my final point on this is he is one of those swimmers that we were talking that I think I might have mentioned earlier, that if you're going to find someone's feet, you've got to hope it's a Palchineri, because as I was saying, you don't have many pickings towards the back of the race.
Yeah, no, you are so right. Those fast-moving Italians, they come through thick and fast, but they do come through fast, as I said. So if you're not ready to jump across, and geez, just look at that sea of black Italian caps. A couple of USA swimmers in there. I wonder who that one was, potentially Tepper or Gravely, still holding on. The one difference I'll say to this point in the race to the women's is when we saw Martinez move through for Spain. She moved through as the dominant sort of strong woman in that race, and had a range of competitors that were sort of on the lighter, higher stroke rate, higher cadence side of swimming. This is completely different because we have Christoph and Logan, the two strongest men in the sport currently, going head to head, and almost opening the door here for Greg. But as you said, Alice, like, we had multiple chats on air, off air, talking about Greg and his sort of development as an athlete into the back end of his swimming career after what has been such a decorated career. And we almost questioned if he had the ability to really perform on this level. And like a true champion, he has fired a shot back here, but I am worried that they've just given Christoph a bit of clear room here, and that's the shot now. Christoph Rozovsky swimming in his own water.
Yeah, be great to get a side on or overhead shot in a second, but looks like he's really created this space. And to your point about Palchineri, it wasn't the case of, is Palchineri good enough to go to Worlds? It was, wow, there are a lot of very, very, very good Italian swimmers who could dethrone him. And you're absolutely right. He is firing that shot back. It's fantastic to see him back on this form, back at the front of a race. And I really, when we get the results, I really need to look through and see where he was sat, because that's the thing that you've been discussing, right? Is someone going to start coming from the back again? And someone with the experience like Palchineri and the speed that he possesses as well, it makes for that deadly combination of, I can cope with the ups and downs of the race at the back, but I also have that potent speed that can get me through to the front. And Rosowski, these are two strong, like, beefy men in Rosowski and Fontaine, you know, really going shoulder to shoulder here. And be interesting to see if, like, Palchineri can just, like, take opportunity from the chaos, find his own water and slip around it. But I don't know if that's how he's looking to execute this last part of the race.
Yeah, well, so to that point, you know, usually it's Logan and Christoph that are the ones that are coming from that fifth range forward. These are the two that are going to be leading. They're very hard to get around. So much like we saw in the women's race, it's going to be the slender athletes that have to jump over the top, which often doesn't work. But we rarely ever see an athlete like Christoph and Logan just sit at the front and control the pace all the way through the last kilometer. So it's going to be interesting viewing. I guess, this is being streamed around the world. We saw in the women's race, it certainly was of interest to tune in and see exactly how it played out. I'm sure the likes of Florian Wellbrock either is watching it now or will watch it back to see what the different tactics are that play out through the back end of this race. And I'm sure, as we mentioned, that messages will be sent and received at the end of the 10 kilometers. So it's going to be exciting. There's one thing for certain: we will be crowning a champion in about 15 minutes time. And Alice, your guess is as good as mine at this point.
I was gonna say, should we just throw it out and go for it? Who we think this might be?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to think back to who our predictions were before the race. I know we both talked about Logan. I know we both talked about Christoph, but in which order, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've got mine written down here. I had Rosowski, Marc-Antoine, and then Sachavelli. And I feel like you had swapped Olivier with Fontaine. So I think we're both very, very close to predicting this. I know we both thought Rosowski was up top. And then Greg, just this is what I mean. When he's found his own water, and I think it's, I don't know which Frenchman is on either feet, but this is a fantastic, I think I'm going to call this is the top 5.
Yep.
And honestly, if you put down any of these 5 swimmers in first place, second place, or third place, it all made sense. Oh my God, Pouchinary is just storming through.
This is incredible. Honestly, you say that that we would have predicted this top 5 on paper. I honestly would not have had Greg in this position. I did not know that he still had this sort of fire in his belly to drive. And I guess, Alice, like, it's such an important message that we really don't give it the justice it deserves. Is to do what Greg is doing right here requires so much training. Like, you have to be such a dedicated athlete, and he is absolutely throwing it down to the Olympic and world champion who is in fine form.
Yeah, and he has been operating on this level. I don't know if he went to 2012, so please forgive me, but he was definitely dominant at Rio, dominant in Tokyo, and might not have had the, I say might not have had, he was still got the 800, he was still on the podium for the 8 and the 15 in Paris, so excuse that, but just the amount of years that it takes to operate at that level, the mental and physical strain that puts on your body is insane. And we're talking about the hardest pool events. I'm going to say they're the hardest pool events, the 8 and the 1500, definitely up there with the hardest, and then the hardest events full stop at the Olympic Games. So what he has done in terms of his longevity of the decoration of it as well is so impressive, and it is really great to see him back on form. And I keep acting like it's been a while. It's been like 8 months. So maybe we got too ahead of ourselves. I think the World Cups towards the back end of the year potentially skewed how we saw things, and I don't think he had the performance he wanted in the open water race in Paris. But after swimming 2 very good 8 and 1500 races, it's not too much of a surprise that there might have been some fatigue in that.
No, for Greg, that is he's unfortunately been sandwiched between Logan and Christoph, so this is not where he would want to be, especially going into that
nightmare position. I think I think Sachavelli's lost his cap, which has made it very easy for us to pick out that is Sachavelli without his cap, and then Marc-Antoine to the right in the blue French cap, and you've still got like about 5 Italians behind them. Ollie Klemet's tucked in there as well. Honestly, the cat and mouse, the to and fro, I really don't know where this could go.
This is, so if you're coming into this position, Christoph probably has the best line into this turn. He's going to squeeze Greg into Logan, but Logan's also going to push back, and of course we have our referees closely watching exactly how this plays out, and that's why you've seen a bit of a spurt there from Christoph to try and push across and shut that lead down. But here's Sachavelli. It's all going on, And Alice, we've still got 700 meters to swim. Logan Fontaine, Christoph Rozovsky back in the lead as they come into this turn.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, this feels like a really long last lap, but it's just because I'm so excited for the finish that I'm like, where's the finish? Where's this going to go? And it's been so back and forth. You know, we saw Logan really take the lead for a second, and then Rozovsky looked like he was creating a gap, but that was shut down. Palcineri looks like he was going to take that lead as well. It's been so all over the place that
Yeah.
I'm so excited to see where this goes. We see, Logan
Oh,
Fontaine
no.
take a yellow flag.
That is dangerous this deep into the race. But I will say that not that you ever get an advantageous yellow flag, but the way that he was able to bounce off that yellow flag and put a little bit of a spurt in to get that inside line to Christoph, and now he has the lead over the Hungarian. So that was a fantastic turn there by Logan Fontaine. I haven't seen him lead the race from this far out and come home with the victory. So he's doing a sensational job to hold that position. And this last turn, as we mentioned in the women's race, is ever so important to see who's actually going to take the victory.
You honestly took the words like out of my brain, because I was thinking, as they were going into that turn, I was like, is this the perfect opportunity for you to take a yellow flag and dip under the buoy? And I probably shouldn't be saying it because I don't want to give athletes ideas, and he did take that yellow flag. But then this is that conversation where, does it matter where you dip under the buoy in the race, where maybe it's an automatic, maybe the officials have a discussion after this and say, actually, if you dip under the buoy on the last lap and you're clearly in a position to take the win, that it should be a red flag. I'm not saying they will say that, but just as you said, like an advantageous yellow flag, we're just seeing the athletes really kind of stretch the boundaries, I'm going to say, of the rules in that sense. So I mean, it's one of those things. It's the tactics, right? And it worked out for him.
Yeah, it certainly has. He holds the lead. Marc-Antoine Olivier sitting in second. Christoph Rozovsky in third. It looks like a battle between Saakashvili now and Gregorio Palcineri. And Alice, like, it's such an important part of the race, not only for what's going to happen for the titles of who's going to get medals, but also for which federation has athletes in which order. The Gregorio he's not only swimming for a World Cup spot, he's trying to make his World Championship team right here. So expect him to fight back in this backstage of the race. But it almost looked like a different French hat there popping up behind Rozovsky.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I wasn't sure if maybe I was mistaken that Saakashvili lost his hat, but it looked like Sasha in his stroke, and I'm not sure. And he does typically lose his hat, but I'm confident this is Marc-Antoine really coming up onto the hip of Logan Fontaine here, and can still see Rozovsky's stroke in there. So, oh my gosh, yeah, and you're so right about the qualification, the implication this means for all these teams. Palcineri knows he has a job to do in terms of being in front of all of these Italian men, and Ollie Klemet will be embedded into this as well.
Yeah, that's we'll see how that plays out. Interesting from this point, Christoph has learned from that opening lap. He's gone on the inside of the course, let the French athletes go on the outside of the course. What this is going to enable him to do is exactly what we saw Logan do in lap 1, where he pushed the field towards that sort of pontoon area and ultimately squeezed out for the win. So Christoph he's done a good job here. What he wants to do, if it is Saakashvili on his feet, is he wants to leave that gap between himself and Logan and invite Veli to swim through that area. He doesn't want Veli to be on the outside because he will then get sandwiched between the French and have to work harder to move forward. So a lot plays into these dynamics. You'd be wondering, why isn't Christoph swimming across? That's why.
Yeah, there's honestly so much to unpack here. You know, each swimmer is going to be doing what is right for them to get first, right? We'll move forward under that assumption, but what they're doing will not marry up with what the person next to them is doing. They all have their own different game plan and understanding of how they are going to win, and also thinking in their minds, how do I stop as much as possible within the rules of the other person getting the win. So there's so many dynamics happening here. It's honestly the first lap really set up the foreshadowing for this, because you had Rosowski toying around with Marc-Antoine at the front, and then Logan Fontaine storming through and finding that space to get round and force his way to the front. And I just don't know where this is going to go. I still do not want to make a call on who's going to win this, because it could go anywhere.
Yeah, no, it could, and I honestly am not even confident in who that third Frenchman is in that lead group, whether it is Veli or I believe it was Emile Mesmeric, who turned through in 12th at the end of lap 1, so he could have pushed through. It could be Veli. That's the danger of having so many Frenchmen towards the front, and don't even bother trying to unpack how many Italians are charging through that top 10, but this is gonna. There is. That looks like Varani starting to absolutely charge down this. That if we have Fontaine, Varani, and Rosowski, I honestly pack her up. This is going to be the hardest race to finish.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those pure white water in the finish funnel sprint finishes. It's going to come down to a photo finish, I think. It'll be one of those where we don't have the results ratified for a few moments, so please do bear with us. But really, really, really exciting racing. And look at all this white water.
Well, Alice, I'll ask you, are the big boys back? Are the big boys back?
Oh, that's a statement, isn't it? This is what I was saying about the evolution. Is it swinging back round? Is it coming back round to be fast swimming at the front? But you need that strength endurance. We're not just going to let you swim away. You're going to have to come into a sprint finish. And look at this. He's still got Palchineri in there. His hat's coming off.
I think that's Ollie's hat's come off as well. So
that's Ollie's. Okay.
Palchineri in 23. That is Palchineri. Klemet on his inside. Oh no, that's Guidi. Sorry. It's just, but Varani's got his own water, and we know Varani with his own water is absolutely deadly. Marc-Antoine, oh my goodness, Alice, this is a crazy way. Big move there from Guidi.
Look at this is the thing as well. We've been talking about. They're kind of wrapped up in their own little battles here. You've got the Freefsky sat in there, but Guidi's found his own space and stormed through. And I think they've just noticed now, and they're going to have to answer this. Otherwise, that they're fighting for 5th position at this point. You just don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah, this is a chaotic race and a chaotic way to finish the race. It's been on from the very first lap, and it's delivered all the way through the 10 kilometers. 6 laps in the Mediterranean. There's been nowhere better to swim, and we have a very clear lead. That is a monumental lead out in front for Italy. Not even sure who this late charge has come from. I think Varani's actually in second, and we will see who takes the gold. The Italians are just so used to this that they've come and delivered over the top of the Olympic and world champion. And what a show this is out in front. There is no one chasing them. This is crazy. They've been given their own water.
This is my point. You get so wrapped up in these battles, and these guys are going to end up they're competing for 5th, 6th, 7th, 10th place at this point. They've got so wrapped up with that they've allowed this gap to open up, and this is just such impressive swimming. Talk about timing it to perfection. And we see 2 Italian swimmers come into the finish here, and I don't even know who's in 3rd position. We'll get results in a moment, but so great to see.
What a finish.
Of today is unpredictable.
Last 500 meters I've seen in a long while. That was sensational, Alice. And what a way to finish here with a top 3 from Italy.
I think the headline of today is unpredictable. This is why we love open water swimming. None of my tops, for the men's and the women's, the top 3, none of them were the ones I predicted. Fantastic racing. That is pure open water racing that you saw from Philadelphia there. Tactical execution to perfection. Finding that opportunity, using that chaos and that, but the they were just ruining each other's races, in terms of the three Frenchmen and Rozovsky, and anybody wrapped up in that battle that you saw coming across the line at the end there. They all really hindered each other's racing, and it allowed this amazing spurt from these three Italian swimmers to come through and claim an all Italian podium.
I mean, we've seen it before, but never in that fashion, and never really with the depth of the top athletes that we had today. Like when Christoph, Logan, and Mark pulled across, and then
it wasn't any of them. They would have finished in anywhere from 5th to 10th position. It is now suddenly the Italian show. We're talking about these three fantastic Italian swimmers, which neither of us predicted, which doesn't feature Palcineri, and I think this is the point that we were making earlier. It is a tough team to make for Italy. This is one part of their selection process, and I mean, it could go anywhere. You could have any of these three swimmers potentially not
happy for this win. Short and sweet, but that was a tough race. There were some huge names in that field, and we have in Italy 1, 2, and 3. Second then, Dario, it's second on this occasion, but that was a tough race.
Yeah, it was a tough race because the water was cold. So it's very difficult to swim in this condition, but I'm very happy about this result.
And Giuseppe, you made it 1, 2, and 3. What a great day for Italy.
Yeah, I didn't expect, sincerely, but I'm really happy. I just follow these two guys, and I did a good job, I think.
Excellent stuff. Give them a big round of applause. It's in Italy. 1, 2, and 3.
Wow, so dominant. And Alice, you mentioned, well, we mentioned, of course, the fact that you once followed Sharon through the field, and that's exactly what Giuseppe did on that last lap. He's come from 17th on the last lap to 3rd. That is, and
that's
some of the
unheard
swimmers
of.
he's come past as well. Like, what are we watching?
Honestly, I know there are certain things with open water that are predictable, and I would often say you're not going to swim into the top 10, let alone onto the podium coming from 17th position. I would say that 9 times out of 10. But a race like that chaos just ensued going into the last straight, and you could see how happy he was when he got out, that smile on his face from Ilario, where he knew he found the right place at the right time and ran with it. And I absolutely love that. It's what I love about open water swimming. It opens up.
Came in 2nd American behind Gravely and 4th overall, but he has swum past some incredible athletes. And as we've mentioned, like, yes, admittedly, everyone's in a bit of work at the moment, but that performance needs to be noted. Joey Tepper has stormed home that last 500. There's a lot of training that goes into that, as we talked about, Alice, but at a certain point, these athletes are just pure grit and determination.
If you keep going, it really can be rewarded. Opportunities do open up. You find gaps, you find spaces, and you go and you take them. And now, for Joey, getting this experience at this stage, he'll understand what that feels like, and he can carry that through to the other races. And I've said this a lot for America, especially, a little bit for Australia, but definitely for America. I really want to see them taking their swimmers to these World Cups. Get them in, get them this racing experience. They don't really get that opportunity on a continental basis. There are many fantastic open water swimmers in America, but the depth of open water swimming, I'll be blunt, sits in Europe. So you do need to come to these World Cups where you get, I don't know, like 15 Italian swimmers racing, a load of Germans, a load of French, and give them those opportunities to race like that, because getting to a World Championships and suddenly being met with that competition makes it very shocking, and then also very difficult to actually get the results that they could offer.
That's such a great point, Alice, and it's good to see the Americans, using this weekend as an opportunity to fine-tune those skills. Of course, they weren't able to race in Soma Bay, but having completed their national champs only just weeks ago, using the momentum to come across and showing really strong. How's Schreiber in ninth position there as well? Like, he has always shown some elite speed in the pool, and pops up every now and then with some strong open water races. But to finish in that top 10 today, that needs to be studied.
Definitely, and I think we also saw a swimmer from the Czech Republic as well. So really great to see some of the other European nations that we don't typically highlight and speak about. I'd also love to see where Kaito Tsushimori has finished as well. It's obviously a fantastic start to the race leading out. I think he went through the end of the first lap in ninth position. But that's the kind of efforts you want to see from swimmers, getting in, giving it a go, and seeing where he ends up. And it will only contribute to his continued development.
So more athletes coming down to finish, benefiting from the experience of racing here in Ibiza. And Alice, tomorrow we get the absolute honor of calling for the very first time at a senior level the 3-kilometer knockout. We talked about it briefly off air, and we will talk to the specificity of the event tomorrow for sure. But the race itself is going to be very tough for some of these athletes who are going to have to back up after what was that was an intense 10 kilometers. That was on from the very first stroke.
Absolutely. This is going to have taken a lot out of them. There definitely will be tactics coming into tomorrow. If this was a fresh 3K knockout, I wouldn't expect many tactics to be coming into, I can try and take the 1500 steady. But I think from some of these stronger, faster athletes, they will be potentially playing around a little bit with feeling out where they can finish. So I am so excited for this race. First time on a senior highlights now, and we've got more to come tomorrow. And these 10Ks have flown by. They have been so exciting, so impactful. These athletes on both the men's and the women's have done some really fantastic racing today.
Yeah, that's right. And we're seeing some of these highlights now. This whitewater is an immense sight, and it looks very easy to swim through from a drone's perspective. But when you're in the water pulling through that, or even just trying to get through the chaos of breathing in an open water race, when you're met with the side chop and this whitewater, it can make it really difficult. But such a great spectacle to the race, and speaks to volumes to how fast they were moving through the water. As we saw opening up, it was Ollie Klemet, David Bethlehem really controlling the pace before Krzysztof Rosowski put his name in charge, wanting to chase down that sprint lap. Ultimately, was squeezing out. Logan Fontaine collects the 1,000 US as he takes the win in the money lap. Almost a sense of normality as we saw German Cap control the pace from lap 2. This time, though, Ollie Klemet out in front. He battled with Rosowski through these stages. Klemet really looking quite strong. Unfortunately, a couple of yellow cards to Hector Pardo saw his undoing with a red flag. Was Klemet still controlling the pace through the middle stages? Such a clinical display of freestyle efficiency out in front. Just punches through the water so calmly, making it look so easy. A very traditional overhead shot there of the arrowhead that is open water swimming. Rosowski just tucked in behind, not wanting to do any work out in front, but doing enough to stay in touch with our lead athlete. Often it was Klemet just trying to pull away, causing some confusion for the pack, as we see in this overhead shot right now. But moving into the last lap, started to get very, very spicy at the front. Rosowski and Klemet going head to head, but Alice, ultimately Klemet just spending his cookies a little too early.
Yes, definitely. And you can see the vision of what Klemet's trying to do. I think if you had Florian in the race, I think the race would have looked different. I think that gap probably may have opened up when Klemet really tried to cement it, and he could have gone along with it. You can see what's happening, and I think, when we get both Moesha and Florian Wellbrock into races, like into these races again, it'd be so interesting to see how does that change the dynamic? Would it have been a less chaotic finish, for example? Always so hard to say with open water swimming because it depends on so many ifs and, as I've said, so many stories that play out through the race. But a really, really exciting swim, and this isn't to take anything away from the trio of the Italians on the podium.
In such a dominant fashion, this last straight was utter chaos. So many big names in this sport just going head to head as well, which made it so exciting. Of course, whenever you see a bunch sprint like this, it does get mouth-watering for what's going to come. But unfortunately, they were so busy battling with each other, they didn't realize the main three charging down the outside of the course. Oh, sorry, with a lap to swim here. This is when it did get real spicy, and those three, like, we'll get these shots here, Alice. That was incredible scenes. We don't see it very often.
No, you absolutely don't. Seeing like three juggernauts of open water swimming go like up next to each other like that, and I really think they thought the race was with them. I don't think they spotted this surge from them, or if they did spot it, it was far too late for them to be able to respond and get that clear water individually. So, I kind of preluded it with the and look at this finish, this like 10 in a line. It's just something else, and there's some really fantastic swims in there. There will be some disappointment from the ones we kind of expected to win with Logan Fontaine, Marc-Antoine and Rozovsky, but for someone like Joey Tepper, really, really fantastic race of getting that great experience of being in a top 10 and being in real contention.
Yeah, that's right, and that's what those World Cups are about. That's what we've been saying all broadcasts, and why World Aquatics continues to work with the local organising committees to ensure these opportunities are available for the athletes. As we talked about in the women's race, you can't underestimate the power of a home World Cup as well for inspiring the next generation. We've seen some strong Spanish men come through the ranks. The next rising star looks to be Carlos Garrich. He unfortunately wasn't able to race today, but I'm sure there was a bunch of youngsters out there in this beautiful part of the world just watching all the action, and I feel inspired by what Philadelphia did in that last lap. I can't imagine how the youngsters on the beach are feeling.
Yeah, definitely. It just really goes to my point about it's not over until it's over. And if you're a younger athlete and you're looking at this of wanting to be an open water swimmer, or even just pool swimming, I say just pool swimming, but even pool swimming, please know that these races, whilst you think, oh, that person may be in front of me, or that person's the Olympic champion and the Olympic medalist, etc., don't give up. Give your heart to it. See what can happen. And I think that's exactly what we saw from Philadelphia, Varani and Ilario, just taking that opportunity. And it's kind of a great story to be able to tell, of show, yeah, you thought the race was happening here, but it was actually happening way out of their eye line.
Yeah. Well, an interesting point on Ilario, just doing a little bit more of a background dive into him. He has been on the podium at a world level, just at a junior level. So for the first time at a senior level, he'll be on the podium. But the last time he was on the podium, Alice, was at the World Junior Champs in Seychelles 2022, where he finished third, 4 minutes and 33 seconds behind David Bethlehem. So to your point,
Wow.
you don't, we've talked about it throughout the broadcast, and again before off air, it is like you never know when you're going to peak. You never know what body type's going to work. That is where the grit and determination comes into play.
God, that's such a good point. That's such a great fact and example for the race of you know, stick to your own story, stick to your guns. I was speaking to some young athletes about this before. They were telling me like, I don't feel like I can train as much as I want to. I really enjoy the sport, but is it worth me continuing in it? And I was like, yes, absolutely. As long as you have enjoyment and heart, don't compare yourself to other swimmers. You focus on what you can do. You try and be the best athlete you can be. And you don't know where your story is going to end up. You don't know when you will hit your peak and when you will take those opportunities. So if you throw the towel in because you think you're not competing with somebody else and that person ends up quitting in a couple months time or something anyway, then you'll be sat there wondering, oh, where could I have got to? And I personally always found the what if and the potential regrets of quitting much worse than actually getting in and giving it a go and potentially failing. So just keep, my point is with that, just keep going, keep trying. You don't know where your story is going to end up in this sport.
Yeah, and I guess that's a great point to note as well. Like, whilst we have the World Cup series, the 10 kilometers being raced across the series, it's also great to know that there is, you know, other opportunities in open water swimming as well. Swimming longer than 10, swimming shorter than 10, swimming up to, you know, 60 plus kilometers in racing. Like, that's all on the cards for these athletes if they deem this not the best format to be racing. But, you know, you look at Ilario and I don't think you would have pulled him out of the race in 2022 and told him in a couple of years that he would be on a World Cup podium. It truly is the leveler for swimming and has a very bright future, which does, of course, you know, get revisited tomorrow through the 3 kilometer knockout.
Yes, definitely. You know, we still have so much. As always, we're always spoiled with these World Cups. Like, 2 fantastic races tomorrow. Normally it's the relay, but we get the 3K knockout to sink our teeth into as well. So stick around. I think we will be going to presentations shortly and be able to celebrate all the fantastic efforts that we've seen from our athletes today.
Yeah, it's a great point. The medal presentation for both the men's and the women's 10 kilometers, as well as the points tallies for the overall series and junior points, and of course the money lap. But Alice, you know, it's hard to define one best performance today. There were so many good performances out there. But you spoke earlier about the home crowd energy. How impressive was Angela Martinez's ability to control that, especially in that last lap, the chaos that would have been behind her?
Yeah, she did so well at holding her nerve and, you know, continuing that strive and that strength into the finish. It was really, really fantastic to watch, and just so exciting for her to take home like such a strong win in her home country on such a beautiful island. On kind of, I see Ibiza as like a pride of Europe, let alone a pride of Spain. So it must be a really, really special swim for her, and something that I hope she really relishes in and soaks up and enjoys everything that comes with it.
Yeah, I'm sure she will be soaking that up on this beautiful foreshore, and, you know, doing a lot of signatures as well for these junior athletes that are also about to open their account at the Spanish Open Water Nationals. Moving from Angela, who's obviously very excited with today's race. We saw the return of Rozovsky today after his, you know, much anticipated return to open water international competition. We saw him at nearly every move today, almost at every point of the race. As a racer yourself, you know, he's got a long season ahead of him with some lofty goals, I'm sure. But how tough is it to carry that mental and physical load for the whole 10Ks?
It is difficult, you know. He really put himself in strong positions throughout the race, to the point where he could have, if it wasn't for the free swimmers who managed to find that space, he could have reasonably won it. So I think it's one of those, you come away from it, you look at what you could have done better, you look at what you might need in training, and I think those swimmers will be kicking themselves in kind of getting too wrapped up within each other. I really think that was the issue. They kind of became their own worst enemies within that self and let the medals slip away from them. So this is what I was saying about you can't control what other swimmers are doing. You can only focus on what you're doing. And in that moment, they were all trying their best to be the ones to win, but it ended up hindering all of them in individual ways. So it's one of those, I think it'd be interesting to see how Setubal shapes up if there is anything similar repeated. I've never really seen a finish like that. That's very rare. And with the swimmers, the caliber of swimmers that we have who lost out, I can't see that happening again. I can't imagine that we'll find an opportunity for 3 swimmers to swim through from relatively further back to make that happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that speaks to the experience of these athletes, and I guess using the World Cups to go through these ups and downs, because you'd be much more accepting of the result today than you would at, say, Singapore in a couple months' time.
Yes.
Speaking of Singapore, of course, that it feels remiss to say the surprise top 3, but in the circumstances, certainly a surprise. Philadelphia, Varani, and Ilario will be hard to... Sorry, it will be hard to be in the selector seat for the Italian Swimming Federation from this point out. How do you see that playing out? You know, Greg, unfortunately not on the podium today. He had a disappointing race in Soma Bay. Will we see Greg in Singapore? I guess, you know, that's why the Swimming Federation administrators are in the position that they're in.
Yeah, it's so difficult. It's tough, you know. There's it's still all the more to play. You know, this is why the Italians have multiple selection races, because it would be unfair to just take one race with the caliber of swimmers that they have. So it's one of those. I think he did everything right, in the sense of he was in the right position at the right time. It's just the way the race unfolded was challenging for him. So, you know, hopefully back to the drawing board, on to the next race. I'd love to see, I'm sure there will be, the Italians in Setubal, and it's probably another racing leg for them. But yeah.
Yeah, that's why I guess it's going to be interesting to play out, and that's why this sport is so much more than watching the races. There's so much drama to it. You don't have that one pool meet that you can select of. Looking back here to the highlights from the women's race, Ginevra Tadaducci was sensational, but how were these conditions early on, Alice?
Yeah, it's the kind of stuff that you're like just so happy as a swimmer. Like, whilst you have to deal with the cold, at least you don't have to deal with like waves or tide or current or something like that. It's like absolutely beautiful, stunning scenes, really like clear water. Looks like the boats are gliding across glass, and I'm sure the swimmers really appreciated it as well.
Yeah, it takes the mind off the pain when you can look up and just see what you usually look at a postcard, especially, you know, for a lot of these swimmers coming off a very long, cold European winter to be racing here in Ibiza, although, you know, the tropical conditions that they might have been expecting when they're in those dark places over Christmas, but certainly beats training on a Friday afternoon or Friday morning, of course. And they put those skills to the test. Well, yeah, when you match these athletes in these conditions with these incredible shots, it's easy to see why so many people are starting to love this incredible sport.
It's so true, you know. I often get asked the best places I got to swim at, like around the world, you know, places like the Seychelles, Cancun, of course Tokyo for the Olympic Games. Switzerland was always one that stood out to me in these beautiful valleys. It's really a sport that allows you to go to some of the most beautiful places on the planet and do the thing that you are good at. It's a really, really special opportunity, which it is, as we've been saying, you know, seeing the numbers grow out in these races, it's great to see more athletes taking that on.
You can see the chaos here of a feeding station. These athletes make it look easy. Going to instructions you've got through a feed station, Alice.
Oh gosh, I was always quite lucky. My guy would Bernie, big shout out to Bernie Deidseg. doesn't work in open water anymore, which I think is a great loss to the sport, to be honest. He just knew water, and I know that sounds like really like silly to say, but he would be able to read water and the venues and the races in a way that would give such valuable advice, especially for those more technical races, and just give great insight that I would be able to execute my race plan off the back of that. But he'd typically just be shouting out words of encouragement, which was like always really nice to hear, to be honest. Like, great job, keep going. It's just really, really important to hear when you're going through it. Sometimes you're sat further back, and just nice to hear that your efforts are being appreciated and that you should keep working hard.
Yeah.
But going through these feeding stations, like hearing what people are saying, there's so many different languages being shouted. It's actually sometimes really difficult to pick up the person that you should listen to.
Yeah, no, on the money there, because it is chaos, especially, it's not like you're running through an aid station where you can clearly pick up who's talking to you, what they're talking to you. Certain times you'll be like halfway through your drink and someone swims over the top of you. So if we ever got the chance to really break down a feed station, it would be great viewing around the world. So we do encourage you to go back and check out the action. But here we had at the front of the race in the last lap, the hometown hero. It is Angela Martinez, so strong with that loping stroke in that final lap.
Yeah, she looked absolutely fantastic. Took a really, really dominant last lap, made it her own, and did so in style. Created a nice gap between her and Celine. But Celine round out a diverse podium compared to the men's podium with an all-Italian finish.
So here we have some of the men rolling through as well. Shout out Marcel Shelton of Netherlands, still competing at a very high level. It was a great start across the field, but particularly from Kaito Shimori of Japan. We've talked about him and just how quick he was. That is a great stroke. If he is able to get his own water in a finish line one day, he's going to be almost impossible to stop.
Oh, that's such a good point. We see the potential with that, and if that was just put, conserved, saved, then later on in the race where he was really able to open up a space at the start, but if he can save that for the end, I really do think he has so much potential and isn't afraid to get in there and do some hard work, which is it's deadly. That's really exciting for him, for Japan, but also a bit nerve-wracking for the rest of the field in terms of what he can do. So really exciting future for him, and looking forward to LA 2028. I think he's going to be one of the names that we should be watching out for.
Yeah, that's great to see, the sort of escalation points of these athletes as they come through as juniors, through to battling at the back of the lead group, to making a name for themselves at the front, and then ultimately going through to win those races. The likes of Christoph and Florian, their ascents was so rapid that you really didn't get an opportunity to appreciate the phenomenon of a developing athlete in an evolving sport, but this, they've got at least another 6 years in them.
That's such a good point. The longevity that we're seeing from athletes in open water racing, it's getting extended year on year on year. You're seeing less people retire and still sticking in with it, and just allowing their experience to shine, to really, really shine through. And I think that's another fantastic example of the and the opportunities that it really does offer our athletes, that you can come into this at 16, 17 years old at the junior competitions and genuinely have like a 15-year long career in open water swimming at an elite level. And then of course, if you said, you can then move on to like Andreas Washberger does, the longer, more challenging in different ways swims where, you know, it's more of maybe less so of a physical demand, but for me anyway, I would definitely see it as a mental challenge in terms of, you know, completing these like crazy straight crossings around the world and things like that. So I'm just exempling the fact that there's so many opportunities in this sport.
No, and that's sort of what we've talked through the broadcast about, is that it doesn't discriminate on age either. Washi, a true specimen of a human, really, but doing those ultra swims at such a quick pace. But there are plenty of athletes around the world that certainly don't swim those crossings as quick as Washi does, and still get to enjoy our sport. Looking here, we were coming into the final lap. This is a point where Rozovsky rarely gets beaten from. He did have some elite competition around him, one of those being the return of Gregorio Paucineri, just running out of steam on that final straight.
Yeah, I mean, that final straight, I think it's something that all of the swimmers who lost out will be going back and, you know, talking to their coaches, write some notes down. Don't forget what happened, and really try and think about what you could have done better to have a different result. I mean, I think Philadelphia, in this swim here, he just found his own water, had space. I'm not saying he was necessarily like quicker, but he really just found his own space and took that opportunity and executed it tactically so well. So the other swimmers that lost out, I think, probably will be looking back on this, understanding what they could do better, and hopefully next time moving forward with a better result for them.
How crazy that overhead shot there of about 12 athletes coming through the finish line. Like that, that is so rare as we get the results here. Philadelphia, Varani, Ilario, as you know, Olivier, Tepper, Guidi, Fontaine, Rozovsky, Schreiber, Castro. Like, it's a perfect mix of the best and the rising stars, and names that we don't get to see very often. Unfortunately,
seeing Paucineri finish back in 15th place. He's I think that's the sixth. He's probably the 5th or 6th Italian there. So just how we were exempling how difficult it's going to be to make that Italian team, and you have a swimmer who is as strong and as amazing as Paucineri, who would be a walk-on to the majority of teams around the world, and now suddenly met with quite a tall ask in the next qualification competitions for him.
Yeah, it's a tough road to climb here for Gregorio Paucineri, a true legend of the sport. We're seeing just sort of starting to come up against his legacy almost of really strong open water swimmers that have graduated the Italian swimming program. I think it is success ultimately, right? Is to see your successes into your position, but it's a bitter pill to swallow. And I mean, if you even look back to last year, Alice, you know, the Italians sent Azzarenza and Varani to the World Championships to compete in that 10-kilometer distance. It was Paucineri's job to focus on swimming in the pool. Varani ultimately qualifying the federation the spot to swim at the Olympics, but the opportunity to represent Italy was granted to Paucineri. This year, I mean, you can't speak for the federation, of course, but they have a very tough job in selecting their team.
Yes, definitely. You know, you've got so many different dynamics to think about. You know, historically, who's been great at World Championships. I don't know if that will come into account, but I'm not envious of those selectors. You know, of course, they have so many great swimmers to pick from, but you're going to be disappointing so many fantastic athletes who could reasonably be on the podium in Singapore as well.
So moments away from both the medal presentations of the men's and the women's 10 kilometers, as well as the presentation for our overall series leaders in both the open category and the junior category, and our money lap winners for both the men's and women's race. We are only moments away, so be sure to stay tuned and we'll see the official ceremonies very shortly.
And we are just about ready to start the presentation of the women's 10K. We have, of course, the 3 medals to give out, the sprint lap to reward as well, and a really nice cap for our current junior lead from the end of the day. So loads to celebrate amongst these athletes. We're just seeing the medal presenters being getting their moment at the moment, you know, names read out.
Yeah, this is some of the dignitaries that make these incredible events take place. So a very big thank you to our VIPs up on the stage as they are right now. This is Fernando Carpena, the World Aquatics Bureau member and president for the Spanish Federation, next to Carmen Ferreira, the mayor of the city of Santa Eulalia de Rey, and Salvador Losa. Here we have our junior leader after stop 2. This is where it starts to get very interesting. Luna Kaviso of Finland. We noted her performance after Summer Bay Alice, a star on the rise.
Definitely. I have to say, I absolutely adore her sunglasses. But fantastic to see. I really like this inclusion of celebrating the junior leader and the sprint leader as well. You know, let's celebrate the fact that we have these rewards and these prizes and give these athletes the opportunity to be up there and know what that feels like, as well as the fact we saw our junior leader be led out towards the end, you know, at the top 10 people to watch at the end. So just giving experience of what that feels like for her as well is so valuable. And now we're getting into our podium with Bettina Fabian taking our 3rd place medal for the day for the women.
Yeah, great to see Bettina really fighting back at this world level. Just seeing consistency in the podium, which is great. Up next is Celine Reda in 2nd. What a performance it was from her, really fighting through the back end of the race. Just going to show once more Coach Byrne getting it done.
Yes, definitely. You know, finding the right time, right place to really strive through, getting on the podium in such a wonderful style. And it's, I believe, her first ever world senior medal. So really, really fantastic racing from her, and great to see that continual development coming through. She competed in the Tokyo Olympics, and now, you know, still competing in the sport, still striving through and having some great opportunities.
This moment belongs to Angela Martinez up on top, and what a background that is. What a moment for the Spaniard up on top of this podium, a home World Cup. Like, this does not happen very often. Even in Golfo Aranci, held in Italy, we very rarely see an Italian gold medal, so I'm sure she'll be soaking this in.
Yes, definitely. What a fantastic opportunity for her to, you know, really create some notoriety, some strength to the sport, and enjoy her national anthem in her home country.
There it is, Angela Martinez up on top of the podium, Alice. What a moment for her, but also just a quick shout out, also the series leader now, with featuring that fire hat as well. We talked about taking those hats home. That's something that Angela will have forever and a day now.
Yes, definitely. You know, it's just a nice little touch, isn't it? And yeah, the series leader, she finished 5th back in Soma Bay, you know, 1st now. So, you know, putting together a really good string of results and creating a really competitive like environment at the top for those series leader points. So, you know, great to see also.
Yeah, I wonder if that means we will see Angela racing in Setable, trying to retain that title as the series leader. She's in fine form, of course, and that's been rewarded with the overall series lead. We'll move now, of course, into the presentation for the men's ceremony. And just a quick shout out to our representatives in the men's. Of course, we will have Carmen Ferreira, the mayor of the city of Santa Elula de Rey, next to the Council de Ibiza, sports councillor Salvador Losa, and the World Aquatics Technical Open Water Swimming Committee chairperson in Sid Cassidy. And what a great man Sid is, been monumental in the development of this sport, and we can thank him among others for the introduction of some of these hats, but also some of the bigger concepts like the 3 kilometer knockout.
Yeah, definitely. It's really great to see the forward thinking from the World Aquatics officials in creating more opportunities for us to have some fantastic races. You know, it came with the relay, and now we get it with the 3K knockout as well. And we're seeing Logan Fontaine get his moment to celebrate his sprint lap win. Gets $1,000 and a nice cap to go along with it.
Yeah, he looks in fantastic fashion at the moment. Really, really strong and well deserving up on top. Another Frenchman up on the podium. This is our junior tour leader, Emile Masmek. Oh my goodness, a powerhouse in the making, and we can see him. He was storming home on that last lap, just like our junior athlete in the women's. This is a star on the rise.
Yeah, certainly. More and more French athletes just keep popping up.
Yeah.
I think we're going to be saying that France is the new Italy in terms of the depth that we're talking about. You know, you can't get complacent whether you're a Logan Fontaine or a Marc-Antoine or even Sasha Velli. There's no room for complacency or thinking that your spot is comfortable. So it is great to see, and that's how you end up getting athletes consistently on the podium, like we are seeing with Italy. That is a tried and tested example from the Italians, and look what we have here today, a 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, what a moment for Giuseppe as well. Here, after trials and tribulations, he's been competing for a while, but this is the first senior podium.
Absolutely, and it's so well deserved from him as well. You know, like I said, that resilience and that perseverance is so important in, you know, getting those opportunities. And you end up standing next to Varani, who is very familiar on these podiums, as we've seen before, and a fantastic win from Philadelphia. I'm sure these two next to him are very grateful for his effort to kind of pull them through and give them that opportunity.
Yeah, they're almost working in tandem at the end of that race, and very well deserved. All three of them fighting all the way to the finish line. Philadelphia was sitting in 11th with a lap to swim. It was Varani in 8th and Ilario in 17th. And that's your podium, Alice. After we were talking about the top 10 not changing too much, these guys have to go and show us that we're wrong.
Absolutely, and we love being proved wrong in open water swimming. That's what it's about.
And as the medal presentation concludes here in Ibiza, that brings us to the end of today's coverage for Stop 2 of the 2025 World Aquatics Open Water World Cup. Before we go, Alice, we've seen two incredibly different races today. From your perspective, what's the biggest takeaway heading into tomorrow's brand new 3-kilometer knockout?
So my biggest takeaway would be find your own water and make it happen for yourself. We saw that today from both of the winners in the men's and the women's race, that they were able to create space, find their own opportunity, and then run away with it. And I think this is going to be ever so more important in the 3K knockout, where there's less time and space to deal with tomorrow. So really fantastic racing from everyone. Huge congratulations to all of our swimmers, and so looking forward to a fantastic and lightning race tomorrow.
Brilliant insight as always, Alice, and a huge thank you for joining us on the call today. It's been a pleasure having your voice and experience alongside this unfolding action. A big thank you as well to our broadcast team, the event organizers here in Ibiza, World Aquatics, and to you, our viewers, for tuning in and being part of an incredible day of racing. We'll be back tomorrow with live coverage of the 3-kilometer knockout sprint, a brand new addition to the World Cup circuit, and trust us, you won't want to miss it. Until then, stay safe, stay sharp, and we'll see you back on the mic for more open water action from Ibiza.
We're now going to present our overall men's tour leader.
Ahora vamos a presentar al líder general del tour.
Please make some noise for our overall tour leader representing France, Marc-Antoine Olivier.
Por favor, un fuerte aplauso para el líder del tour, Marc-Antoine Olivier.